Yes, and there's a paper at the top. Yeah.
So they haven't had much flying time.
Mark, how are you doing? So,
Years. Great. Yeah.
Pretown meeting, I'm Allison, I'm your moderator this, next Tuesday. I just want to speak ground rules for tonight. This is not, we're not voting. This is meeting like town meetings. We don't have to follow state law. But there's some controversial things being voted on this year. I think a lot of people speak. So what we're going to do is the first time you get up, if you'd like to speak, you're going to have about 3 minutes. And then when we get 3 minutes up, we'll ask you to stop so everybody gets a chance. Once everybody's had an opportunity to speak, we'll then open it up and back and speak again. After that, we just want everybody to have an opportunity to get on the floor and say something. So, we are doing this live. It's also right now. So Victoria will be talking to the Zoom people, at least following them. And the people on Zoom, if you would raise your hand, if you want to say something, do your question or comment in the chat, then Victoria will motion to me and read your question or give you the opportunity to ask. So I'll start by reading the warning for this year. The Town of Pretown annual town meeting, March 7th, 2023. Can everybody hear me? The legal voters of the town of Royalton hereby notified to meet the gymnasium of the White River Valley School said town on March 7th, 2023, between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Transact the following business by us. Article 1. We elect the following town officers as required by law. Town moderator for a term of 1 year. Town clerk for a term of 3 years. Select board for a term of 3 years. Select board for a term of 2 years. Lister for 3 years. Collector of delinquent taxes for a term of 1 year. Trustee for public funds for a term of 3 years. Second constable for a term of 2 years. Cemetery commissioner for a term of 3 years. Library trustee for a term of 2 years. Article 2. Shall the town of Royalton adopt the town manager governance in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 37 of Title 22 of the Mark Statute Standard. 3. Shall the town eliminate the office of 51A.
Shall the voters authorize the treasurer collect real and personal taxes on or before November 3rd, 2023.
Taxes subject to charges 1% per month for fraction and 8% penalty charged against them from the due date. Article 5, shall voters appropriate $110,607 following road appropriations pursuant to 24 VSA section 26.
So there's the community food shelf, the health hub, school clinic, South Royalton Fire Department, Royalton Memorial Library, South Royalton Rescue Squad, Royalton Town Band, South Royalton One Planet Program, Fuller Stearns hosts number 51 for Memorial Day, and South Royalton area senior citizens. The total approved for last year was $359,662. The requested for this year is an increase of $40,965 for $410 and $400,010 $410,627. The increases of this year are with the South Royalton Fire Department. They're asking for an increase of $26,175. Royalton Memorial Library is asking for an increase of $6,927. And the South Royalton Rescue Squad is asking for an increase of $6,863. And South Royalton area senior citizens, there's an increase of $1,000. The rest are asking for the same amount we approved last year. Article 6, shall the voters appropriate $24,924 to the following social service agencies pursuant to 24 BSA section 22691. And it's Central Vermont Council on the Aging, Clara Martin Center, the Family Place, Healthcare and Rehab of South Royalton, Vermont, HIV, HCV Resource Center, Orange County Parent-Child Center, Vermont Association of Conservation Districts, Safe Line, Tri-Valley Transit, Vermont Adult Learning, Vermont Association of the Blind, Vermont Center for Independent Living, Visiting Nurses, White River Partnership, Washington County Partners, and Washington County Youth Services. There's been no changes from the request from last year. Yes, last year we approved $24,924,000. This year they're again asking for $24,924 total. Article 7, shall the voters authorize general fund expenditure for the operating expenses of $1,784,125, of which $1,395,000 shall be raised by taxes. $186,125 shall be spent in the general fund surplus, and $203,000 raised by non-tax revenues. Article 8, shall the voters authorize highway fund expenditures of $1,104,960, of which $850,000 shall be raised by taxes. $999,960 shall be spent in the highway fund surplus, and $155,000 shall be raised by non-tax revenues. Article 9, shall the voters disapprove the ordinance regulating all-terrain vehicles that was adopted on December 27th, 2022. So before we begin open up the questions and comments, I just want the select board to go ahead and introduce themselves.
I'm Tim Murphy. I'm currently the chair.
I'm John Dunville, I'm clerk.
I'm Jerry Barslow. I'm nothing.
Chris Noble, ditto.
And we're missing.
David Barker's missing.
And so the next thing I'd like to do is under Article 1, if there's anybody running for office, and would like to get up right now, introduce yourself, let everyone know what office you're running for, and maybe give a few statements or comments about why you're running and That would be great. So is there anybody running? Go ahead.
I'm Stuart Lavasser. I'm running for the seat of Select Board that David Barker is leaving. And I've been on the planning commission since 2015. And I've been chairman of the planning commission for 6 years. I've attended a lot of select board meetings, and I think I can make I can add something to this, this team here. I think that, we've got a unique town. The character of Royalton is something that needs to be preserved, and I would like to, see what I can do about, I've heard people say that they don't have a voice on the select board here, they don't have representation, so I hope to fill that void. I believe a good selectman would, listen to the concerns and opinions of the voters and make decisions for the good of the town as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much better in small groups. Hi, I'm Kate George. I'm running for select board. I've lived in this town since 1996. All 4 of my kids graduated from what was then White River, or not White River, but Royalton, South Royalton School. This has really become my home, and I'm at a point in my life. My kids are all gone. It's me and the dogs. I have time now to, devote, give back to the community. I'd like to think that I'm willing and to listen to all points of view and try to come to the solutions that work best for everyone. I'm new at this, so I'll be doing a lot of learning, but I am willing to learn, and I would really look forward to serving the community.
Hi, my name is Mark Preston. I've been involved with the town government in positions such as health officer, town constable, and a police officer here in town. This last year, I've been working as a police officer up in Orange County and have not been that involved locally. And I still have received a lot of calls from concerned citizens regarding their wants, their needs, their concerns that they feel are not being heard. And that my first response is, did you go to a select board meeting? Have you participated in town government? Some of them are yes, some of them no, some not as much as I probably should have. My one suggestion to each and every one of us, you're all here, is that we participate in what we're doing here tonight, is that we all have a voice, we all have concerns, and the most important part is that we listen. If we're lucky enough to be sitting up where these gentlemen are sitting, is that we listen to the concerns of the town, not our personal wants. When people go, hey, Mark, what do you want for the town? It really isn't what I want, okay? It's what y'all want. And through you, I'm the conduit through you to get those concerns heard, to get them addressed. One person on a select board does not change town government. There's 5 people for a reason. And as you come together as a group, we should be able to debate without being pointed at and say, you're causing problems. We should be able to disagree without saying you're a rabble rouser. And if I've got questions, it's not for any other reason that I don't have the answer. I don't know. And those who are making the decisions, those who are in charge, should be able to stand up proudly and say, here's why we do what we do when we take all your money, all through your taxes. And I don't know about you, but my taxes aren't going down. So if someone's taking your money and just saying, sit down, we've got you, be very, very hesitant about who you vote for, okay? This board represents you, okay? You do have voices, but you have to stand up and you have to let them be heard respectfully. But sometimes more than one select board meeting is essential. So get out there, knock on some doors, let these people know. Here's what I need, here's what I want, here's what I don't understand. And they'll be able to explain it to you. And for those who don't, well, I feel if you don't have a voice in the fight, then you're gonna get what you get, and it's not always what you necessarily want. So I'm more than happy to be able to explain to anyone individually or as a group exactly kind of what my visions and what I've heard over this last year about concerns are. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. And I appreciate the time, the honor, and the ability to stand up here and ask each and every one of you for my vote. And I'm not trying to out Tim, even though I'm running for that seat. Tim's done a great job. But when I ran for this, I was told that seat was going to be available. And so that was my motivation for standing up and going for this position. And whoever you all vote for, you get exactly what you vote for. And I'm just proud to be part of the process, and thank you all for listening.
So I'll go next because
I just wanted to, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, no, you're running.
so we'll keep the 2-year terms in folks in the queue here. So here's what I sent to Jojo at the paper. I'm running for re-election. I was hesitant because I don't think people should be lifers. I don't think that's necessarily healthy for a town. But I'm running for re-election mostly because I'd like to see the construction projects that are underway, like get followed through on. Okay, and there's several. We have the railroad bridge that you can see they've been working on the last couple of days. We have Bridge Street Bridge. They have the sidewalk project. And I'm proud of the folks who served before me, very much so. He left us in good shape. I'd like to carry that on. I would like to see these projects through. I think I bring something to the board, especially on that end of things. Our current select board works exceptionally well together and has maintained a respectful, positive tone through the changes we've faced. Royalton is fortunate to have a talented team of individuals, top to bottom. You might not agree with them, they're talented, and they're a good group. I've enjoyed my time here. I think the energy, top to bottom, is all spent in the best interest of the town. I've enjoyed my time working as a member of the team. I'd like the opportunity to serve 2 more years. And then it is time for somebody else. And Mark's correct. If you don't feel as though you have a voice, come to a meeting, come to a couple meetings, and see what we're all about. Thanks.
I don't think there's any other contested right now. Does that?
Common sense. You want to have a real town meeting and get a place where there's enough room to park. I'm parking on my way, I'll see you later.
Is anybody else that's running want to speak? I don't think we're done with contested races, but that doesn't mean that somebody might be coming back. Anybody? Okay. All right, then we'll start by letting the select board kind of open the meeting with some comments, and then we'll open up the floor.
So, if you don't mind, I'll start. If the communication's ever been poor, it's me, okay, it's on me. A couple of the hot button items, obviously, are ATVs. And when you have a vote in town and it passes by 1, it's, generally raises the temperature, I get it. But Kathy Hassey asked us in the beginning of the process, what are each of our positions on this subject? And I said, I respect the process. Ian McKenzie came before the select board with a proposal. Ian McKenzie didn't come out of just thin air. He's done a lot of work for the town as an engineer for free, like renovating the Carpenter property a few years ago after it flooded and things like that. Helped us get FEMA grants and stuff. So it's not like somebody from thin air's thrown out that our door. And he made a proposal, and we quizzed him, and he came back, and we quizzed him, and he came back. And finally, we put it out to a vote. And I was kind of surprised it passed. I thought kind of personally it was gonna get thumped, but it passed. So that set in motion some, a series of things, and one of which, we took a lot of, feedback, right? And, then we said we would like a group of individuals to come forward to help write the draft ordinance, a draft of an ordinance. And everybody who showed up, because, an ideal committee is so big, but everybody who came, we just put in the committee because they came forward with interest. And they came forward, they elected a chair. I think you took testimony from law enforcement, VLTC, the cities and towns, from other towns that have ordinances and things. And we came back and adopted what they gave us, and it was a group of individuals from this time. It's still controversial, but can't get around that. But it is part of the process. And after a couple of select board meetings, we approved it. I'm sort of surprised again that we didn't get the petition handed back to us that night. But you did your due diligence. When you did your due diligence, we really appreciate it. When it came back to the select board, we thought the wording didn't necessarily align with what you had meant. We thought the wording was a bit confusing. So we said, are you sure this is what you want to say? Because I don't think it's clear what the intent is. And I think JoJo helped, and a couple of folks might have helped change the wording so it may be a little bit clearer. Because your intent is you want to overturn it. Some folks want to overturn it. I get it, it's fine. But we wanted to make sure that it showed up. I think it's still slightly confusing in the warning, but I hope everybody understands it when they leave here and then they vote. But that is a process, and I respect it. And I just want to say that I think a lot of people came through bruised. There were some disrespectful moments, but we arrived here. It's going to get voted on, and I think that it's okay. And John opposed. It was voted in favor of 4-1. We don't hate John. John's a good guy. He just has a different opinion. So my position is that I respect the process. At the moment, we have folks riding our roads illegally. Okay, I used to live for 28 years up on Fisher Road, which is off Johnson Hill. Always people zooming around up there. At least now we have May to September, October. We have daylight hours. We have speed limits. We have they're registered, they're licensed, they're a certain age, they have the proper PPE. We have nothing. We have nothing right now. Now we have something. We have the opportunity to have something. Are there people abusing it? Absolutely. I saw somebody come through town on 2 wheels, it's a 4-wheel ATV, come through the middle of town this summer on 2 wheels. We're always going to have a bad apple, but I feel as though personally, you should give these folks a chance. It gets reviewed every single year. It's written in that we can change it. I just want to give these folks an opportunity. That's all. I understand some of you do not. That's okay too. So I'll open with that comment because I think that's probably one of the bigger ticket items and why most of you are here.
All right, does anybody else from the select board have anything just to open with? No, it's good.
Do you mind if I say a little bit in general about our budget environment right now?
No,
It's-
yeah.
Please do.
Is that okay now, or should I say it later?
Yeah.
Okay, times are tough. And they might get tougher. We just came through COVID. We got a real war going on. It's not hitting us, but it's hitting a lot of the world. And so the key thing is, if you look at the value of the dollar in 2019 versus the value of the dollar now, guess what? It's lost 20%. That's a heavy hit. So if you look at, our proposed budget for 2024, you'll see it's gone up, but not quite as much as the value of the dollar has dropped. So the objective in there, if you want to look at it in big ticket items, is to try to keep doing what we're doing now, but we're paying a little bit less for it. Now, the town manager is a question, and I don't know if you want to go there right now, but
I'm more than happy to.
but
Like,
and let me just, if I can just say something about the town manager, a lot of towns do it. And there's some pluses and there's some costs, and the cost is big. It's, it's what? 1.4, 1.2, 120,000, 130,000, somewhere. I think that's about right. And we need, if we don't do it now, we need to start thinking about it. And here's why. The knowledge, skills, and abilities to run a town like this, even though it's not huge, are getting more and more technical about the laws, compliance with recording, the grants, all those things are getting more and more involved in the paper side of things. And it's not something you can learn by being elected and sit on the board. It's something you either have to come from the experience of it, or you have to learn along the way. So towns have found that they don't have a lot of people, and as Mark and others pointed out, you got to have a say. If people are running unopposed for the select board, that's saying there's not a lot of energy in running for government. Please do so. We shouldn't have any positions uncontested. We should have everything, people volunteering to put their time in to do this right. And if you don't have people with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to run a multi-million-dollar organization serving the town, then services are going to suffer and budgeting are going to suffer. So eventually, if you look at the departure, it's getting harder and harder to do these things due to the legislative and the legal and the reporting and the documentation requirements. And we're getting less people enthusiastic about running for the select board. That may not be a good place of service for the town. So think about it. We can do two things. We can either vote in a town manager, and then it's going to get more efficient. It's going to cost more, but it's going to get more efficient. Or you have more people take the time to come to board meetings, learn how it goes, put themselves in the positions. Stuart, how much you've been coming to board meetings ever since I've been on the board. So, he's been part of the process for a long time, and he's stepping up to it. If you're going to do that, that allows you to learn what's going to have to be done before you're here. And that's important. So I think the big thing the town could benefit from is more people willing to serve on these basically unpaid elected positions. You got to do it. If you've got the skills, so not everybody does, but if you've got the skills, we need you. We need you. So the town manager is a big chunk. And if we vote in the town manager, we'll be right even with the value of the dollar, and we pay for it. We'll be right even with where the dollar would have us at about the beginning of FY 2024. So in other words, you'll be spending the same value that you did in 2018 for the town with the town manager. That's because of the 20%, basically because your dollar is not worth what it used to be worth in 2018. And if you don't have it, we're a little bit less. We're doing a little bit better. So you're actually getting for the same. Now that the challenge is, unless you're on some kind of corporate or governmental job, you're not seeing those step increases. You're not seeing those cost of living allowance increases. And we get that, we know it. And so that's why it's a balance. That's why it's important to think, do you want the efficiency of a town manager now? If you don't vote for it. But if you think it's time, And eventually, more and more towns are going that way. So that's all. Be happy to talk about it with anybody anytime. And we have the numbers. If you want to see the numbers for budgets and stuff, if you want to see where they're coming from, we can go with that.
Well, why don't we go ahead and open up? So I think, why don't we just stay on this article, and see if anybody would like to address that, please. Sure. And again, I'd ask you just to keep your questions and comments for 3 minutes, and we allow you to come back, and of course, you know, should we get on to another article, and you remember something, you can always come back to this one too. I just think it might make sense to go through in order.
And Phoebe, we know who you are, but still identify yourself.
My name is Phoebe Preston. I did serve on the select board for a short period of time, but I work in a corporate job. I work for a large company based in Vermont. And I'm in charge of all of the purchasing for that company. I cannot go to my CEO and say, hey, you need $130,000. I'm gonna spend it. I'm not gonna tell you what I'm spending it on. You don't need to know what it's for. Don't know how we're gonna spend it, but can you approve this? It would never fly, ever. We're the CEOs of this town. And we're being asked to spend $130,000 for something that the select board has not yet given us a job description for, has not yet specified what those duties and skills are, has not put forward a job description. Unless I'm mistaken, somebody please correct me if I am. It's irresponsible. And I'm not opposed to the idea of a town manager. I actually think that the select board is probably right, that a lot of towns are headed that way, that there's a lot of skills that that position brings. But we can't just blindly sign off on spending a very large chunk of money without any reason behind it, other than other towns are doing it.
Anybody want to address it or?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the select board and I'll vote no. I think this needs more public discussion. It's a major change in our government. I'm the skunk on the board, proud of it. Because I'll vote no on this. We may need a town manager, but I think the town needs to really talk about it. Waiting another year, big deal. We can do it.
So,
Yeah, I attend all the select board meetings too, and I never really heard this discussed in depth at a meeting. I heard it talked about, as a kind of almost casual thing. Should we put it on the warning? Should we ask Victoria for a rundown of what might be the advantages? But I didn't hear back and forth between the select board members, and so I would like to hear that now.
Sure. First of all, just the straight legal knowledge, you have to come, and budgeting and accounting and auditing knowledge, you have to come doesn't happen naturally. So you've got to have a pretty unique skill set. And not all the board members have that when they first show up, after they've been there a while, or if they take time to come from a corporate environment or come to a lot of board meetings, you get an idea of what has to happen. Because it's significant. Advantages. Roads are something we do, right? Something we do very important. Matter of fact, the most emotional calls we get are roads. They are. I've had all kinds of those calls, as everybody has. Well, our road crew does a great job about preparing the roads, about doing with what they have. But if you want to look 10 years down the road, if you want to keep up with the grant request, the mileage request from the state on why haven't you got this many miles of paving done, or where's your certifications? There's a lot more to the roads part, which is a very significant thing that we do, than just running the equipment and doing a great job at that. There's a lot of paper, there's a lot of administration. So one of the things that town managers are, they essentially become a road commissioner. a lot of their time, because that's a lot of what we do. They spend their time on what we do. And they start looking deep and assisting the road crew with the deep planning, the accounting, reporting to the state and sometimes federal now. So that's another thing. It's one-stop shopping. If you're not happy, you know who to call right then and there, and they have the power to make that decision. They don't have to tell you, I got it, I understand, but I've got to put it on the select board agenda and get it approved, and we're gonna go. So it's a lot more satisfying for a town member to go to a manager and get something resolved then and there. Victoria gets a lot of calls. Most of the time, she has to tell, we'll take it to the board, we'll get it on the agenda. Well, that may not be real satisfying if it's something real, obviously an emergency, we do emergency things. That kind of, it's responsive, it's quick. But as you know, it can have challenges because sometimes the board and the town manager are not on the same sheet. And then it gets difficult. We have cases like that in nearby towns. So it's efficient, it's responsive, but it costs a lot more. And, you know, I'm not completely there yet on it myself, but the reason it's here is because we need to start thinking seriously about it. We need to, and we want to know your first off opinion. Where are you, Royalton? Where do you think? And by putting it on the warning, you're going to tell us no, or let's think about it. And that's what we need to hear. So we, as a board, tell you how serious we should be working on this concept. We don't want to put a lot of work into something that the town doesn't want ever. So anyway.
Suzanne?
This article is asking us to make a decision about having a town manager or not. We have not gotten any information until right now about what that is. You're saying, oh, this article is just to try to get an idea from the town. You know, should we look into this? That's not what the article says. Be clear about what you're asking us. And before you ask us, can you please do some research? Share with us what your thought process is. Have some town discussions. This is a big deal.
Yes.
So you're asking us without the benefit of a floor meeting and vote. The only people that might even hear what you're saying are in this room, saying, oh, we don't really want you to tell us, we just want your opinion. That's what I'm hearing now all of a sudden. That is not what the article says. I really feel like we need to tell the rest of the town, vote this down for this year. I agree, it could be a very good idea. But I don't know if I want you to be hiring people with the consideration that I see has been put into this vote, this article.
Alice Havergal, I've lived here about 40 years, and I agree with what Suzanne says. Nothing totally wrong with the town management decision, but we have to. Then it's like a couple months, suddenly voted, get it going. No, we have to discuss it and get different opinions, because we've got a lot of people talking about it. And it's a nice bunch of people, but there's a lot more people in town, and there's not a lot of information going around. So I would say delay it. It's not a bad thing, but just, we can't just change our whole system of government. It's like going from democracy to dictatorship. You know, you don't do it overnight.
Anybody else have a question or comment with us?
Yeah, I understand that you want to ask if the town supports the idea of the town manager, but we've already got $130,000, $120,000 in the budget for it. So what happens to that? That has to be voted down if people don't agree. So now.
So. What's that?
What, answer that question.
You're absolutely right. It won't be spent. Okay, I want to back up just a little bit because I agree with Suzanne, the rollout was terrible, but. Okay, we've already established that, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said, our rollout was terrible. I agree with you. Okay,
Let's wait. What?
I said our rollout was bad, okay? Let's just put that aside. I just, like, when I came on the select board, I guess I had a different idea of what they did. It was kind of news to me. And that I think sometimes we get caught up in parking tickets and dogs on the green and things and decisions that could be made in real time instead of waiting. And I think in a lot of times, I think with Rose and with, I think Victoria, especially because I have more experience with Victoria, I think a lot of things they capture in their job, which shouldn't really be their job. I think Victoria does a lot more than her job description, right? So we're trying to clean it up. A town manager, like you look at $120,000 and they can be the delinquent tax person. They can be our HR person, which, by the way, would generate, delinquent tax person would generate about $20,000 worth of income for that position. The other places, I remember when I worked on the school board, somebody questioned somebody who worked at the supervisory district and said, what does this person do? And they said, they're a grant writer. And they said, well, this is many years ago, paid him $56,000 a year, which seemed like a lot of money. And it is not insignificant. They brought in $2 million to the district. You know what I mean? I think that our rollout was terrible. I agree with you. And that's on me. You put that on. But I think we got to ask some bigger questions because I do think in the future, we should have good discussions. And I don't know the best way of doing that. We've gone to some forums with the community where it's like, what's the best way to communicate with the community? Sometimes it's because people don't show up at our select board meetings. People don't show up even via Zoom. So getting the word out is a tough process.
Yeah. And along that line, so Sandy Conrad, that's what I was wondering, like, how is the setup? It's not just the town manager, like, what's role is Victoria now in town administrator, and then what would they be taking on? And I think those are, so it's not just talking about having a town manager. I'd like to know how it's gonna restructure the whole town offices and the staff. And then, like you were saying, maybe there is a way to pay for it. I don't think anybody's totally opposed to it, right? I think it's us just having a way, I don't know, whether you have a special meeting. I mean, people came out for the ATV thing. I think we're gonna get people who are gonna come out for the town manager.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Good point, Ben.
Curious why we're not having a town meeting at.
Can you introduce yourself?
Why we're not having a town meeting at two of the select board members have already said it's a time for this article needs a discussion. And there isn't a place to have that.
Yeah.
Town meetings.
That's.
And every other town around us is also having their meetings. It's specifically for that topic alone.
I'm a big supporter of town meeting. I'm sorry we're not having one, because I think a town meeting brings a community together. You can discuss the issue, you can look at your budget, you can amend it, add money, take money off. Can't do that with Australian ballot. But we heard from a number of people who said, I can't take Tuesday off from work. I need to work to make a living. And we had people pro and anti ATVs come to us saying, this needs to be an Australian ballot issue. So we tried to accommodate them, but this is only 1 year, we're going to have no town meeting. I know the town had a meeting a couple of years ago where the idea was to do all of our town meetings Australian ballot, and we voted no. We wanted to keep our traditional town meeting.
How are we not having a meeting if we voted down the Australian ballot? That's the point of having that meeting. You voted down the Australian ballot. If you're not blaming specifically COVID.
It's not just COVID.
If I voted it down, we wanted the town meeting, we voted to have a town meeting, we voted down going to Australian ballot.
No, we didn't have.
The state suggested and provided the option that because COVID is not over yet, that if you want to take caution, it would be a good thing to do. Well, because
Let them speak.
yeah. Now, again, please don't expect perfection. You know, we're kind of all doing the best we can with putting a lot of pieces together at once. But the state said, hey, still got COVID. If you want to have a town meeting, do it. But, you know, it's kind of a challenge. And this, you don't have to come because we're not going to have a vote on a town meeting. You got to come because you're going to have a vote. And there's hopefully in the mind and in your minds, we can get enough. I mean, we are taking even the things that hurt in and putting them in. Okay, this we got to do. We're listening to each and every one of you. And now communications in this kind of time has been tough. But listen, COVID is still a factor. And, you know, our leadership has said it is not done yet. So out of respect for that and for the people who would feel that they were kept from participating due to concerns for meeting for the disease, in my mind, the consensus was, okay, that's the overriding factor. So I mean, that was the reason I said, okay, one more time. Anyway.
Mark Preston. Stuart mentioned something about 130,000, 120,000 has already been allocated into the budget, correct?
127,000. It's 127,000.
$127,000. How did that happen? If the objective wasn't to establish that position, okay, which means you either did it with the knowledge of we're gonna do it, or then you wouldn't have allocated for the money if you weren't feeling we're gonna do this, which tells me you allocated something, we're preparing for it, we're gonna establish it, and with all due respect to Victoria, all I've heard is Victoria, Victoria, Victoria.
Yeah.
Is she gonna be our town manager?
No, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying somebody.
It's an application process.
It's an application, the
The
best qualified person.
We can't allocate a reality.
Yeah.
Monies. And say, well, we haven't really discussed it, so let's allocate another 100,000 for something else that we may have to discuss maybe down the road.
Very, very good point. By doing it this way, we see, you have the option to say, not only no, but it's out of there, and then it would never be spent. Yeah,
What you've allocated.
no, if you say, we're not, money. But what you will see is you see the effect on our future. You see, if you do vote, it's crystal clear what the cost will be. And that now, I'm not thrilled with the way it was rolled out either. I think we could have done a lot better job with it, but we have what we have. If you don't want it, you vote no, and that money is not spent. Also, you see where, if you do want it, where it would be in the budget, what it would cost.
I think.
Introduce
I
yourself.
feel-
Introduce yourself.
My name is Val Gwen. I think what I feel and what I'm hearing a lot of is that between the two of these big items,
And the fact that we're not having a town meeting, it feels like we're being really quick with this and really like underhanded with it as a whole. So that's how I'm feeling, that you're kind of trying to pull the wool over our eyes with this and make a really quick move that we don't have any input on.
Are you talking about ATV commission or committee ordinance being?
No, we're still
Oh,
talking.
no, but you said too big.
Well,
Town
the
manager.
town manager, no public meeting, no town meeting, which this would have been a perfect year to go forward with the town meeting. There's a lot of new people in town. We're getting them for the year and yeah, there's a number of things that you say you want public input, but then you're like, no, let's not have any. Let's do this real quick. That's what it feels like. That's what it's feeling.
Anything happening on Zoom?
No hands on Zoom.
Is it not only the town manager position, but also an assistant? Is it two things actually going on?
No, I mean, basically, it's the town administrator who does finance and the town manager. Town manager, as you made it quite clear, we didn't do a good enough job description, but it would be HR, it would be roads, it would be all encompassing and a person who can make decisions based for the town.
So just one person.
It would be one person.
Can I clarify? I don't think, no, I think the existing structure we have will stay and the way it's, and then the town manager would be on top of that. So nobody, the position that is now occupied by Victoria does not be abolished if you approve town manager. That position stays, and then the best qualified person to be the town manager would be selected down, and that's, and again, we didn't cover ourselves with glory on the rollout, but this COVID, this Zoom, this stuff, it makes it a lot harder than it used to be. So anyway, I'm not making excuses, or maybe a little bit.
So it's the current position plus a town.
Yes,
Several years ago, we voted in the finance manager that was supposed to take care of all the accounting issues that we just talked about. Do we have one?
Yes.
We have everything in one.
Yeah. Copy that.
So if we, to vote down the town manager, we have to vote no, but do we also vote no on the budget because of the money that's allocated? No. I'm sorry.
Well,
My opinion,
okay,
vote no.
okay, I'm gonna let somebody who hasn't spoken yet. We have a select board person answer your question, or we go up to somebody else out. I'm gonna, you already had your chance. You can come back. But I just want, if any more addressing that, on you guys, and otherwise we're gonna go back up.
The town manager has voted down, that money comes out, and the rest of the budget stays the same. The rest of the budget will stay the same either way.
So,
Yeah, I'm thinking, I guess we have, in the report, we have 4 leaders of ATV that are going to cost you nothing. But when these big ticket items come, it's costing you money, you ought to spell it out in the budget, because you can't go to town meeting.
I'm Jim Proctor, and I'm also thinking, well, I'm gonna get to do more research on this. It doesn't look like this is going to But let the research include research. You said a lot of towns have them. Which ones? What's their total budget? What's their population? Anybody gonna pick up a phone and call somebody who's got one and say, hey, 2 years ago, you got a town manager. How do you like that? Now that you got one, do you think that was a good idea? Maybe we should make half a dozen calls around the states to communities that have town managers, get their input and bring it back to the county. Certainly, there must be statistics about what towns have them and what size those towns are, and are they all big towns, or are they White River Junctions and Berries, or are they Cumberlands and Bethel? I don't know the answer, and I wish you would tell me.
I can tell you.
Right.
Until recently, I didn't know this, but Bethel has had a town manager since about 1973. And I would say they're similar size, maybe slightly smaller, but similar. And I just like, when this kind of got floated, because I think a lot of what sometimes we do is not visionary as select board members, right? Town manager would hopefully take that role of the pragmatic day-to-day, right? And the select board would be more visionary. As Mark said, right now, I'm a health officer. Right now, I'm the liaison to the road crew. I wish I wouldn't publish my phone number in mud season, but all kidding aside, Jerry's rescue. Chris is liaison to the police department. John is like, wears a lot of hats. I see a lot of people right now in our group in front of us who wear a lot of hats. I think to start a bigger discussion, if it gets voted down, I think that the select board should be more visionary to do what's like 5, 10, 15, because we have bridges that need to be done. We have bridges that are being retired. Believe it or not, the Chelsea Street Bridge is being retired this year, I believe. And it's not going to end. And I think that the select board should take a higher look at the town than the pragmatic day-to-day dog bites, health officer, you've done health officer reports, they're not a lot of fun. So I'm just like, for example, Thursday I took 9 samples of our road material. We produced 3 products out of our gravel pit, which has to be Act 250 compliant. I took them to the state testing lab. We'll get our results back. I'd like to work with Bethel on certain things. I'd like to work with the quarry up in Bethel, but that involves things like melding 3 mining operations into one so that we can adjust our Act 250 permits so that we can provide a recipe that's for the best for our roads, instead of doing the same thing over and over, which is the definition of insanity. Right? I would like to do a little bit more of that than chase down dogs on the green, or somebody who's living in squalor or failed septic systems with large rental units. I think a town manager could help that, and I think the position could pay for itself with through efficiencies and grants. We see in the budget $130,000. I think you're getting a deal with the select boards. I don't even know, we make $1,100 a piece or something like that. So you get 5 people who are working 2 days a week for the town, probably on an average. I just think that we could be more efficient. So if this gets voted down, which I suspect it's going to, let's have a conversation about efficiency. Regardless of who's sitting in my seat, let's have a conversation about efficiency.
I'm just curious, you decided not to have town meeting this year and on Tuesday. Is there ever any thought about having it on Saturday? Because people don't, the majority of people do not have to work on Saturday. I mean, I may be wrong in that percentage, but it's just a thought. Thank you.
Great suggestion. Susan, all I can say is that we tried that on the school board and we got a lot of blowback for, that's not a good day for me because my kids are here, or, you know what I mean? I didn't bring your kids. I get it. And the school actually does provide daycare. So I'm just, it's hard to get everybody in the scene.
We never will.
Let me just speak as in the person who's going to introduce yourself, please. In that town, so like, for 40-something years. I think that as far as what day town meeting is on, doesn't really matter. It really matters if you really want to do it. Because I did night shift for many years. I had to work weekends, I had to work nights, I had to work holidays. So that everybody's schedule is not the same. So if it's important to somebody, they should show up. It should go back to when Vermont used to keep 10 days off, but they don't. They don't. And that's what one of the problems is. All right, before we move on to the next articles, or anybody else who hasn't spoken or has spoken, yes, go ahead, Suzanne.
Can I just get clarification from the select board as to your intent for this article? Was your intent to just gauge the interest of the voters? Or was your intent that you were going to hire a town manager who voted yes? You know, there was a lot of talk here about, yes, we need to understand what that really means. You know, how will it affect the rest of the town? What is your intent? And if people don't, who haven't come to this meeting, if you know, if people vote yes because they think maybe that would be a better, maybe they don't understand the issue. Are we really prepared? Are we really prepared? Do you have enough information? Have you gotten enough input? I just, it would be really good to understand where this is going.
I suspect there's 5 different answers to that on this page. And what I would say, you
Yes,
personally.
so, and if that's true, sounds like you haven't discussed enough amongst yourselves to even have a cohesive understanding of what is needed.
And I would say, absolutely, there's great research that has to be done to bring this to the table. But we already have full plates, every one of us. In the language on how the rollout should have been better, could have been better, but it's not. We will know in a few days whether there's any enthusiasm at all in the town for the town manager. If there's zero, we're not going to do those hundreds of hours of research and discussions to bring it to the table. But if there looks like there is interest, you know, that I imagine, I can't speak for the rest, but if I see that, hey, some of the town is interested, let's get all the information, we'll carve that out and put it on the board. Actually, let me.
Yeah,
what?
finish it. Right.
Yeah, Chris, maybe I'd be careful on that point right there, because I'm interested in the spot we're doing in the town and position. I'm not gonna vote for it the way it's already.
Yeah.
But I think you want to gauge, so that I think it's gonna go down wholeheartedly. Don't misread that as like, oh, we don't want a town manager. I think you should follow up right after it's not. But going into the summer, let's pay a survey of the town and just get, you know, and then get a feel from it that way. Yeah, good. Anyway, I just think, I'm gonna go no, but I do think it's absolutely worth pursuing. I think it was not movie.
And I would say, yes, if indeed, the select board wanted to gauge the interest. The select board should make a public statement that really what we want is only to gauge the public interest. Vote no on this article, and please let us know what you think.
Okay.
I was just gonna suggest, if you guys' plates are all full, which I imagine they are, what about a committee?
No.
Like what we did with
Sure.
ATV.
No, you are absolutely right. I think we need to tap into that more. We don't always get the same enthusiasm about ATVs as we do some other things, but
I think I want to rephrase Suzanne's question in a positive.
Thank you.
If this vote passes, will you hire a town manager?
The wheels will, if this does, it does set in motion towards a hire, right? And just, we do belong to the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Town, which we get a lot of coaching on a lot of different things. Yeah, there's a legal process that you have to follow on how to do.
My point is that that's not a gauge of interest, that's an action plan.
Yeah.
Okay, if 60% of people vote in favor, you're not gonna say, oh, I guess there's some interest and we ought to do some more research. You're gonna start hiring. That's not a gauge of interest, that's an action plan.
May I just say as moderator and also a lawyer, that the way this is written, that if it gets voted yes, then you have to adopt that plan and you have to hire a town manager.
Yes, we have to have the plan first.
But with all due respect, you don't have a plan, because you just said, none of you are on the same page. It wasn't really talked about. You don't have answers for us now. So what plan are you gonna run forward with, other than we're gonna take $127,000 and put this person in that position? You have no plan of action. You have no vision. You have no destiny as to where this position is, other than other towns have done it. So I guess it's time for us to do it too. But your own words said, we have not come together as a select board and drawn a conclusion that this is a positive, because if you had, you'd be selling it to us right now. And the fact that your plates are full, boo-hoo. That's your job, okay? I respect the fact that you're busy and you've got full plates, but you wanted the position, your plate should be full. That means there's probably a reason for a town manager. But don't tell us your plates are full, so I don't care. Your plates are supposed to be full. I want you to do your job and do it well and educate us as to why we should vote this thumbs up.
I'm just a little concerned if it fails. We don't know why it failed. Is it the cost or is it the overall change to the governance? I won't be able to know that with just a yes or no vote. And the other question is it a charter change?
Victoria, is this thing recorded? Yes. Okay. That's a point of information. This is being recorded. So it will be available to people who are not here tonight. So people might want to get the word out that it's available to you.
I can't hear you saying, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying this is being recorded, so those that are not present tonight or on Zoom with us have the opportunity to hear what we did tonight. Suzanne?
Do we know how well the audio is for the Zoom participants? Have they been asked?
Yes, everyone on Zoom can hear, and we've used the same setup before for a prior meeting in this building, and it does produce good audio.
We didn't do that. Surprisingly, no.
Folks who would like to participate on Zoom, no.
How much help do you get?
Can you introduce yourself, please?
That's fine. How much help do you get from the way the city and town, all the stuff that you're doing through the year on roads and everything else that you might do?
I'll speak quite a bit. And beyond the Vermont Leagues and Cities and Towns, with the ATV ordinance, we got like a boilerplate. I think you received the committee received the boilerplate draft. Then we took input in select board meetings about legal questions, like what's the town's liability if such and such accident or whatever, or if somebody gets hurt somewhere. Yes, you know, they came to our meeting and sat in and that we quizzed them and answered our questions. What was certain answers they got back to us with. They also did some strategic planning with us. And one of the things they are trying to help us with are how to communicate with town better. Believe it or not. So that is funny, actually. We get quite a bit, but I also want to say that.
But does that help you?
Yes.
That gives you some relief in what
Yes,
you're talking about?
quite a bit, and And what I like about the state of Vermont, they also help us execute grants because somebody has to be the grant administrator. So if we did a box culvert on the Davis Road, which I know I'm not well aware, if we do a box culvert there, they assist us in the process of getting that grant secured and the job executed, and the request for proposals probably that helped us with two rivers. I'm sorry. So we get 2 rivers, Vermont leads cities and towns. What I like about the state of Vermont is, is that we had big concerns about our 2 bridges, right? Bridge Street Bridge and Potsdam Bridge. And we went, and I could email the state of Vermont and say, hey, we got big concerns. We have people who are concerned about it. They're sharing that with us. And I think Vermont has hired every UVM engineering graduate there is, because I know about, I don't know, a dozen of them. Anyways, they emailed back and within 2 or 3 days sent a team of 3 who are already inspecting down in this area to come down and inspect our bridges. Tell us one was in really tough shape, one was in good shape, and put us on the list as number 1 and 3 or top 5 for these 2 bridges, which we anticipate being done. So in Vermont, you can call and somebody answers, which I really appreciate. We get input from a lot of people, right? And as a health officer, we get input from a lot of places as well, from natural resources, if we have failed septic systems, or conditions aren't right, or
So if we went on them a little more, rather than doing it without manager.
yeah. To answer your question, we can lean on people till they fall over. And it seems to be, since I've been on the select board, we tend to look and say, yeah, we can do that, Victoria or Rose, or the next person, or it's like, who has time to meet with the state to do something? And they, like, for a person who works throughout the day, there's never, we have a meeting on Friday, we have a meeting at like 10 o'clock in the middle of the day. It's tough. It's not impossible, and that's what we signed up for. It's not impossible, but we make those meetings. But yes.
One more thing, did you hear anything about this from
Victoria.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need approval.
Yeah, actually, well, no, because it's pre-town meeting, so, normally if it was town meeting, she's not a Royalton resident, so she wouldn't be allowed to speak, but we got. But it's pre-town meeting. But at the same time, I don't want to put her on the spot either, like, we'd rather not talk about.
Dennis, do you have a specific question? Is there?
No, I'm wondering about your thoughts about the whole thing.
On the town manager?
Yeah.
I personally think it's worthwhile. I can see why it would benefit Royalton, particularly when it comes to the roads. When I got hired, the job description was, well, go to the select board meeting and take the minutes and kind of help them do their research and that sort of thing, and do the finances, right? I was hired as the finance person. It has since turned into, writing grants, which is fine, but put out an RFP for a bridge. Make sure that the paint is gonna meet the spec. By the way, is what we're putting on the roads meeting the V-Trans specifications? I really don't want to know that you need an 18-inch sub bed plus 6 inches of top dressing for a road, but I do. And having a town manager to deal with that day to day and take care of the employees and make sure that they're getting, what they need as far as training and development, and ensuring that, Demi's been working for the town for almost 25 years. And he knows a lot, and he doesn't have a second in command. And so that kind of cohesion and ability to work between departments and ensure that we're really meeting the needs and then having a plan to go forward, I can see why the town manager would be a benefit. I do also understand that it's a lot of money. It's expensive and it's a big change. Ultimately, I don't live in Royalton, I live off the road in Tunbridge, and, you know, it's not gonna be my tax bill, and it's not my government structure, so I try to respect that as much as possible, but I do see why the question. Confused. We vote yes, then it's in motion. If we vote no, then you're not gonna consider it at all going forward? So if we vote no, just putting it off for a little while and doing more research. Kind of what I think people
Right.
are looking.
I think you just gave us our charge.
That's why I urge you to vote no, so we can have more discussion on this, because we don't know where it is.
All right, so we've only discussed one article, so there's a really dire chaos. And one last thing.
I was gonna vote no, not no, but also vote no to this budget because the budget didn't do the not spending them.
Did everybody hear that?
But it's wrong.
Okay,
But it's wrong.
I'm just saying, I want everybody understands. All right, so if there's, unless somebody really has something to say, we're gonna move on to the next article.
One quick thing on Davy downtown. I appreciate all of the extra Victoria Bacon has done to find out how much gravel we need over. Did we just give her a $15,000 raise this year to compensate for that whole extra knowledge?
No, but I'm glad you asked. No, I'm serious, man, because I think, so we gave our town employees a 6% raise, okay? I don't know. A couple of things we were fearful of is we lost people because other towns, well, because they got better offers, right? And it's tough to fill positions. And as of yesterday, we have a full highway crew for the first time in a long, long time, and I'm happy about that. We have a full police department for the first time in a long time, okay? So Victoria got the raise that everybody else did, but many of you might or might not know that John Layton is our transfer station manager, is that after 50 years approximately, the Bethel Royalton interlocal agreement for running the transfer station, they came to us and said, we'd like to back out. We thought, wow, because I think it didn't always go well, right? 2 towns, 2 boards, differences of how they do things. Anyways, the finances never were quite smooth. They were bad. They were never smooth. So Bethel did, while we were together, did all of the accounting, and it went through their system, and people were their town employees. Victoria was instrumental, along with Dave Barker and Jerry, were very instrumental in making the transition to Royalton only. We figured out our assets with them. We had a tipping building to split because during our time together, it needed repair, right? So when it came time to shift the accounting, that accounting went to Victoria. We were already paying the town of Bethel that much money to do the accounting. So we now have the accounting in-house, and we just can't keep asking people to do more and more and more and more. And it seemed fair that we could take the accounting money that we were already spending and putting it into ours and give it to the person who's actually going to do the work. So yes, we gave Victoria that $15,000 raise because of that. And we are very happy we did. And right now it's much easier. And I think that if Bethel took it over, they would say it's much easier than, being with us. But for right now, we're doing well. And John has done a great job. Victoria's done a great job with John, and David Barker. One of the great things that he did in his short time on the board was help make that transition.
Daisy again, when I initially asked the question, you were quick to say no. this is what we did, but at the end you said, yes.
Yes, we gave it, we transferred,
Yeah.
we shifted the money to. From Buffalo to Royalton.
I'm gonna take one last, and then we're gonna move on to next area. If we have, I don't have it on Zoom. Okay, let me get, Jojo.
It's just quick. I think that when it was on the B Daisy, they gave her $15,000 more work.
Yes. I'm happy to.
Let's, our hand on Zoom is smooth, please.
And it just says iPhone.
Okay, so,
So
if whoever stand up on Zoom, iPhone, if you unmute yourself and please ask your question. And identify yourself too, please.
Can you hear me? Yes? Oh, this is Rose Heeman.
Okay, Rose. Go ahead.
Um,
Comment.
so my comment is in regards to the town manager question. Some of you in that room may remember that I worked for the town for 7 years as first I started off as finance manager, which morphed into finance and administration manager, and then town administrator. And I will say that
Rose, speak
yes?
into your speaker. Can you speak into your speaker and you're fading in and out.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
No. Now I can't hear you at all.
Oh, dropped off.
Yeah, she comes back. So, and if we need to come back to this article, we can, but we have a lot more to get through. So, if we move on to Article 3, which is the constable question, shall the town vote to eliminate the office of constable pursuant to 17 VSA 2651? So does the select board have any comment to make before we open up the floor?
I can start talking.
Okay, so I'm opening up the floor. Go ahead, Phoebe.
I'd just like to know why you didn't let the constable know you were gonna eliminate his position before you decided that.
Well, that's a great question, and Todd came to our select board meeting. When Mark left, we had no constable, we had no candidates, it seemed as though there was a lot of interest, right?
You need to speak up.
So there was, when Mark left as constable, we didn't have a lot of interest, we didn't have a lot of candidates, in fact, we had none. Seeing as how there's no person, there was nothing, we didn't put anything in the budget, there wasn't anybody. And we started discussing in our meetings, the fact that possibly this is an outdated model now that, because we have a police department. And then Todd came with enthusiasm, so, and he wants to remain on the job and he wants to do his job. Now, I'm all for keeping the constable position, I am. But just beware that when Todd's time comes to move on to something else, whether it's the PD or whatever he wants to do next, and we have that void, I'm not sure we're gonna get a lot of candidates. So you might see it again. I apologize for not, we discussed it in meetings, but not. But you came with enthusiasm, and in that meeting, we apologized to him.
I guess I'm feeling like you guys aren't really answering any of the questions.
Okay.
I asked, why did you not?
Why did we not?
Why did you not have a conversation with the constable when you decided to eliminate the position?
Well, it's my position.
No.
Put the article.
There's this 2-year position that nobody's running for. How popular it is.
Constable,
Yeah.
why did you not have a
Why
discussion?
did you not tell them, Todd, we're eliminating your position?
We were neglectful, we should have.
Thank you. That's an honest answer. Thank you.
Todd has been doing a good job. We're proud of him.
Yes, and for full transparency, when I did leave, I was one of the advocates for disbanding the constable position. I spoke with Todd in great detail. I still am an advocate of not having that position as what it used to be, what people perceive it to be, based on the laws, based on the liability that comes with it, the education, what the state requires, if you're gonna have any kind of enforcement by that individual. That position brings a lot of liability, even with a great deal of enthusiasm. You have to look at it like, what are the pluses and minuses of this job? Can that position be done by the police department? Why not? Okay, the police department can issue the tickets, they can confiscate things, and we're almost setting Todd up for failure by saying, oh yeah, you can be a constable, but you can't really do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And if he uses his car and he goes out and gets a dog, and the dog rips his car up, is the town gonna pay for his car? If he goes out on a call in the middle of the night, in the middle of the way, and he gets in an accident, is the town gonna cover the liability to his car? If he gets in an accident, obviously he's on duty for the town, it should be covered. But these are all little minute little questions that have to be asked and answered so that the town is educated into what a new constable is going to do, because the state requires constables to almost at a position where they're going to be phased out. Like I said, it's an antiquated position. It's not a law enforcement position anymore. And so I think all that stuff, A, should be explained to them, but with this enthusiasm and willingness to work, we also have to cover him liability wise. Like I said, if a dog jumps in the back of your car and does his business in the back of your car, that needs to be professionally cleaned. If he chews your car up, boom, that has to be done. If he approaches a house where somebody says, you ain't taking my dog, what's he gonna do? He better call for police backup, okay? Because he could be facing some, because dogs, there are parts of our family. You're not gonna come to my house and take my family. So it's gonna need a police response anyway. Has that been explained to him so he doesn't get hurt? Is he working in conjunction with the police department? And why isn't the police department doing what we're expecting his position to do when we can't really let him do it?
I think 8 former select board members here. I was on the board, I don't know, 20 years ago, and we were talking about constables then. We had a major issue at one point with a constable who was doing things he shouldn't do. The Vermont State Police came down and told us we need to get a handle on this, so we unfunded the position, and fortunately, nobody has run for the position for a number of years. I think it would be good if we did eliminate it and let Loretta or the police department hire someone to do the duties that a constable does. And then they'll be under this town policies, insurance, and they'll be able to get the training that they need.
And that's that part of the police department.
Yeah.
And that's what the state requires, and our liability coverage
Yeah.
is under the auspice of the police department. And most departments, when you're on duty as a police officer, you get a call for a bad dog, you respond to it. There is no job too small or too big for any officer on duty. And we're really not that busy in our little town of Royalton, where our on-duty officer can't respond to that call. That being said, because we have no police officer who lives in our town or even close to our town, I still, once a month, my wife can verify it, VSP calls me and says, hey, Mark, we've got a dog out here. You guys might have been getting phone calls, because I said, hey, give me the guy, they'll transfer me to the guy who's got the problem. I say, call select board member A, B, or C. Okay, so if I get called at 2 a.m. to come take it to the dog, because we don't have any police officers who are within 20 miles of our town to come do it, then maybe somebody like Todd, who, God bless him, crazy enough to get up at 2 a.m. and go pick up the dog and put him in doggy jail, he should be compensated for that in some way. But it should be a more defined position, that's all I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else on constable?
I guess I'll say something. I like having a local person here, like in that capacity. I really like that. I know his name and, you know, I went to high school with him and grade school, so I really like that. And it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think that's kind of cool to have a little bit of
Appreciate our police board, but I think it could be a good combination, like, if you could still keep that, and like Mark said, have a little more definition to it. And I think it could be valuable, and I think it could be an asset to our town. Okay. All right,
Shut down time, because it's possible. I basically ran because nobody was. The ATV ordinance was coming through. There's a ton of questions on who's gonna police the ATV stuff. That was like one of my top things on the list. I would be happy to be that person. Don't necessarily think everything that the constable has been doing in the last year to go to the police. Admittedly, I can't be everywhere. I have a 50 or 60 hour week job. I coach baseball in the spring. There's plenty of calls I get that I can't take. But I also haven't asked for compensation. It's been told that I can get compensation. I can put in my hours. I just wanted to do it. I felt like the times that I was able to do it and be helpful, it's helpful to the community, and that's all I was looking for. That was payment enough for me. That being said, I don't know if the constable position is necessary with the police department. If, you know, it's not me. I'm happy to volunteer. I enjoy doing it. Some of the stuff sucks. I have picked up some dogs that stink and throw them in my car, and it is what it is. But you know, and there's a communication gap somewhere, because like I didn't get that call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I could have. I'm technically the animal control officer right now. I get most of my information. Okay, I see a post, and I can go and deal with it at that point. I don't get, I mean, can you call it a handful a month from Loretta? So, you know, I would be happy to do some more. Probably wouldn't say no. I'm sure my wife would appreciate the having a conversation, but it's leaving the business and negotiate the dog now.
You wrote your name on the ballot.
Yeah, so I think there's value to the position. I don't think it needs to be a police. I don't think officer needs to go down to a dog at a baseball game that I'm at anyway to say you can't have the dog there. I think it comes off better from somebody that's just at the game, walking over and saying, hey, you're not rude. You can't have a dog here. But yeah.
Thank you.
I have an answer any question.
So I'm gonna move on, to Article 4 and 5 and 6 are there any questions on, those are kind of the usual, you know, the budget. There, well, no, not the budget yet. So there's about collecting taxes on November 3rd, and then there's the royalties organization, and then the social service agencies. I'm just gonna kind of lump all those together and see if anybody's got any questions on those articles. But
To the fire department, is anybody here from Paul Brock here? Just to kind of give us an idea of the increase and what it's for.
there was 4 organizations that had an increase.
Yeah, the biggest one being the fire department.
I don't see anybody here.
I did have Paul Brock on Zoom.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Paul, could you just tell us the increase for your request this year?
The major increases we saw, some of, if you go through my budget, which they got from the select board, but they didn't put it in the town report. Most of the increases, some was in heating, electricity, utilities, fuel costs, all are going up for us. Also, cost of maintenance of our equipment has gone up. We have an aging fleet of fire trucks, some which are well over 30 years old. And the cost of maintenance on those have gone up the last few years. We're putting more money into them. Another thing we set monies aside for reserve, like the town has done, for replacement of equipment like they have for dump trucks and the graders and stuff like that. We put a reserve fund in, and the extra increase we put in for that. So that's where you're seeing that we're trying to save for that rainy day when we have to go out and buy a new fire truck, which will probably cost, a new pumper truck could be close to $500,000 today to replace. And if we don't have the money there in our budget or in our savings to do it, we're going to have to go for a bond vote to replace them. So those are the reasons why my budget has gone up.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the organizations or service agencies with budget taxes on November 3rd? Anything on Zoom? Okay. All right, then the Article 7, which is the budget. Shall the voters authorize general fund expenditures for operating expenses of $1,784,125, of which $1,395,000 shall be raised by taxes. $186,125 shall be spent in the general fund surplus, and $203,000 raised by non-tax revenues. Did anybody on the select board want to address that? Or just open up the budget? Go ahead, then we can open up the floor. Go ahead, Alfie.
I don't think we could take out $100,000.
Can you talk a little louder, please?
We could take out $100,000 for, it's not going to be, there is not going to be town managers and we don't have to move the $100,000.
We can't amend anything at this meeting,
I don't even.
but thank you. Okay. Yep.
I have a question about the police budget. Specifically, there is a 23% increase in spending for the police department. And I believe that we need a police department. But I'd like to understand what the 23% increase is going to get us as residents of the town. I'm also going to assume, and based on earlier conversations, that's maybe a bad assumption, that you, as a select board, understand and approve of the activities and schedules of the police department because you approved this budget and put it in front of us. I'm sure you all know on the select board, but other residents of this town may not be aware that we have little to no weekend or nighttime coverage from our police department. We have no one on call that can respond after hours to critical incidents in town, one of our own officers. Our officers offer to go to other towns, not when they've been requested to go, but they offer, hey, do you want us to go help with X, Y, or Z in surrounding towns? Which takes them out of circulation in our town, and I've heard calls where there's been something that comes up in our town that they can't respond to because they're responding to somebody else. Also, that our officers regularly spend patrol time in other towns using our officers, our equipment, our cruisers, and our liability under the auspices of Governor Highway Safety Funds. So you guys approve of this because you put it in front of us as an approved budget. So I want to understand what the 23% gets us and why we're okay providing our services in other towns.
Well, I can certainly talk to the budget, if you like. 6% raise as the town got. And also, one big other issue that may not know, we used to get dispatch for free from VSP. And guess what? We don't get for free anymore. Dispatch. So we had to tool up in terms of repeaters. We had to tool up in terms of the base investment equipment, and we have to pay for that service every year. That's gonna be somewhere, 13,000 is in the budget for that now, but it's gonna be closer to 18, and it's gonna go up. It's whatever, we have to buy it from somebody else. That's a big change.
You're more like 23,000.
Did you?
Also, no, I can't do that.
Okay. All right, so the dispatch goes up. You know, we have 13 in the police budget for dispatch now, it's gonna go up. But that's, you know, we'll see where that goes, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We also asked, along with the 3 FTEs, right now we have 2 full-time officers and 2 part-time coming on. Could confirm, Loretta's nodding, but also, just, let me just talk money, and then we asked for an additional 20 hours with that too. So you roll all those together and you take the amount necessary for insurance and all those other things. That's how you get the police budget increase. What they're doing is, you know, another issue. So where would you like us to start? In hell?
Well, I'd like you to actually answer the question.
I thought I did on the budget, did I?
No, but you're the police liaison.
Okay.
So can you answer that?
Well, did I ask the question on the budget? I did, just, you know, that's about as well as I'm gonna do on the 23%. We can go down through it. But you asked a lot of questions.
No, I asked 2. I asked, does that be raised? And then why is the select board okay with us spending our police time and equipment, cruisers, liability is a huge one. We haven't been smacked with it yet, that I know of. But we will eventually. Why are we using those funds that could be used in our town? Why is it being allowed to be used in other towns?
The policing is an agglomeration effort. We work with more than one organization across the state.
You're wrong.
May I finish, Mark?
Let him just.
May I
let him
finish,
just
Mark?
finish and I'll let you-
Please,
Please.
but give us facts, please, facts.
Okay, Mark, may I finish? You know, as far as I'm giving you what I know, Mark, okay? We can go on we have a police department and we need a police department for a couple of reasons. Number one is probably because we've got a law school and we've got different cultures and different people who haven't grown up here and don't know how we do things. So. Mark,
Everybody gets a chance to talk.
Okay.
Please let him finish.
Mark, if you don't want me to talk, then if other people don't, I won't, but I'm gonna answer the question the best I can. So the next thing is, we're on the 89-91 alley. We need to be able to try to interdict problems before they happen. So we gave Loretta, and I was on the board as were Sandy and Gidget, when we hired Loretta. We gave her the mandate, try to get us out of the bad part. Do you remember what the police department was? We were having terrible troubles. We gave her the mandate, you know, get us on the right side of the law and start community policing. Let's get the police perception that they're on our side. They're here to help, and they're here to bring the positive side of policemen, not the adversarial side that you have to have. And by and large, they did that. Now, one of the things that the state of Vermont allows you to do, and I don't understand it completely, is police departments to share assets for particular events and things. And also to share officers, because they're hard to find. There aren't a lot of them, and it takes a lot of training. And they allow them to share and to work in different areas at the time, in different areas. We don't do anything that is detrimental to the town in budget. In other words, we don't, and Loretta, correct me if I say it's wrong, but my understanding, we don't spend royalty money to go police somewhere else unless we're getting compensated in kind in some other fashion. Is that true, Loretta?
I think we need to hear from the source, because
So there are a few things in there.
please tell me if I don't answer all your questions. So I work usually Monday through Friday, but I do work a lot of, Saturdays, not every one, I'll tell you that. Oscar's days are Wednesday through Saturday. He normally works, well, noon to 10 or 11. There are obviously days where he's gonna have to come into court or to training or whatever, he won't be that particular shift necessarily. Sean has started working with us again, Sean Frey. He's been working with us since December. He works every Sunday now. He's working Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays works with Governor's Highway Safety. Tuesday he's Regular Patrol. Wednesday he's Governor's Highway Safety. The Governor's Highway Safety is the grant money that we get from the state. It's extra money for us to go out and do traffic. That is strictly it. If somebody is on Governor's Highway Safety, they cannot take regular calls. The idea behind it is to make our roads safer. We are required to make a certain amount of stops on that for that month. The grant requires 2 hours, 2 stops an hour. If, say, somebody in Royalton and slow, they might move to like Bethel or Bidwell, where the traffic's a little more during that time period. It's state funded, so we're not bound by the Royalton town lines. We get compensated for our vehicles, we get compensated for mileage, we get compensated for the hourly rate plus up by the state. It's all done through grants, and the town will that money back. We do not normally go outside of Royalton unless requested, or if we're helping BSP or another agency. Now, the PSP is down in, say, on a snowy day like today, and they're all down in the 9189 exchange, and there's an accident, say, Sharon or Bethel, and they need an officer. Yes, we will volunteer to go and help them. Because we certainly don't want to see somebody who could be from our community who run out, but I consider our communities, a rural area, to be sitting in their car on the side of the road in a ditch without some sort of help. So I told the officer there, if they need help, they can help. I'm not going to anybody in there to, because we want to see down by the other lines. I don't think that's how our community could be, and I'm looking hard, that's how, where our community is spent, where the spend is not good about. So, and so when we're not here, BSP takes over from whatever time we leave in the evening until 2 in the morning. I go on call at 2 o'clock every day in the morning, and I'm on call until 7 o'clock. So if something happens with Carlton, I get called and I go up. And I have one numerous times. So, is there a question I didn't answer?
Yep, first, whose liability, if something were to happen, and you're in Sharon, and I've seen the cruisers recently, regularly in other towns, so it does happen very frequently. If something, yes. If something happens in Sharon, yes, technically they cover the wages, you get additional wages to be Governor Highway Safety above and beyond what Royalton pays you as a salary. If something happens, if something were to happen in another town, whose liability is that? The town, right, so liability is a real thing, particularly with a police department, right? We're opening ourselves up.
I think like any of them, not just.
For sure, but we are not being, but they don't intentionally put ourselves, we could be using those hours in the town of Royalton.
No, actually, we couldn't, because they're paid by the grant. Those are extra hours above the time that we have a lot of for our budget.
But you are, why can't you use the grant in work?
We do.
Why can't you use it exclusively in work?
Because we don't have all the traffic. If we don't get the stops, we go to where some of the traffic is. That's why.
We're just.
And the grant pays.
So we're just stopping people. That's all we care about is stopping people to make money.
The grant
in other times
allows us highway safety policy.
Okay, the other thing is, Anybody that listens to a scanner will know, you will hear Oscar come on the radio and offer, not be asked, hey, I can run down to Sharon for the training religion that previous speech refers to. So just FYI, it's happening. You don't see it, you don't hear it.
I want to tailor this back in. We're talking about the Royalton budget and we're getting into a lot of police matters that are outside of the budget.
It's her reasoning for what she's doing, the way she's managing is part of the reason why we're increasing and putting more officers on direct contact to the increase of the budget. So it's very pertinent as to how this department is being managed and or mismanaged to increase the budget that is not necessary. And what the chief had to say about Governor Highway Safety, this grant. Did you apply for that grant or are you using Rutland County Sheriff Department grant?
We have a subject.
Right, exactly. It's not even our grant. How many times have you seen a Hartford, a Windsor, or any other police officer from any other town come into Royalton and run radar? Yeah, me neither. Cool. Yeah. Oh, I thought you said you saw something.
No, I
Okay,
wouldn't say that.
so-
We don't have the traffic for that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And one of the reasons that the ATV issue is that we don't have police coverage. We have more than enough police coverage. And we are not working until 10 or 11 at night. Ask any of your business owners. Okay? If we know that's not happening. The occasional night, it may be on a schedule, it says, oh, here's our schedule, it says, this person's working this. But why do we have 3 officers working in the middle of the day in the town of Royalton? We don't have that kind of crime. We don't have that.
Can you just tailor it back to the budget? Like, what is your complaint in terms of?
We're overstaffed, direct conflict to the budget. So this is specific to the budget increase. Okay, so we're overstaffing, we're putting on new officers, we put on some other officers with ethical issues, but the number of people that we have on are more than adequate to cover our needs. And as Chris says, we have a police department because we have a law school and other groups that don't understand our way of living. Don't really get that, okay? But
All right, I'm gonna let somebody else. Suzanne.
I would just like to make a public.
To say that people that don't look like us that aren't from here need police protection is offensive to me. And if you would like to clarify what you meant.
Oh, first of all, don't put words in my mouth. I don't put words in your mouth. I said we have different cultures coming together in a wonderful, glorious enterprise. And well,
That is not what you said, but
we can go back and look what I said, but the intent is to say that we cannot rely on people who are experienced in exactly how we do things, not the high-end stuff. It's the parking, it's the snow, it's the railroad crossing, it's all these things. It's the dogs on the green, it's the community things that really are the foundation for a good experience for the law school students and us. And so we need community policing. Just like any university, guess what? They have a campus police force if they can afford it, because it makes things better. Well, to a certain extent, in my perception, we're kind of a university town. You know, one of our major anchors here is that law school. We need to take good care of them. And we need to take care of ourselves and make sure that community policing part comes into play. It's hard right now. I mean, there's the perception of the country right now is struggling with how do we make the police force the best it can be. And we're still working out those answers. And we're asking, in my experience, if you're not completely happy with what you already have, you gotta invest in it. You gotta build it up. So, anyway.
I just got somebody on the back that's spoken to ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, since I haven't spoken yet, my name is Sarah Danley for the record, so I completely agree with Suzanne. Specifically said, we need to be enforced. Because the law school brings in people from other, so she's absolutely accurate.
Thank you.
Are we going back to the police budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, as someone who's running for the.
The
select board,
doctor, the doctor going to the police budget.
Yeah, and as someone who's running for the select board, I think my opinions and my ideas might want to be heard so they can vote knowledgeably. Okay, so specific to budget.
Thank you.
We're increasing the number of people on the police department. But we're putting them out to governor highway safety in other towns. Why are we putting more people on our staff if we don't have enough police issues to keep those people in our town? The ones that we already have. So why are we growing the department so they can flower out? I'm not getting it. So that's a direct hit on our budget.
If I recall, when I was on the police chief search committee, and this was brought up, we discussed in the select board I was on, the budget was for 3 full-time officers at that time, almost pretty positive. 2.5, so it's only a half that, and it sounds like the increases in the budget, more have to do with the raise and, the communication, dispatch. So and we got reports, and I'm sure you guys do now, of all the calls that happen in this town. I don't know if people really realize what calls our police department does make. Hardly a lot of it's hidden, there's a lot of domestic assault in our town, and there's just a lot of stuff, and it's really important to have one in your nickel and diming department.
Not even.
And
I am all for a viable, vibrant police department.
I don't think you've given enough information to say that it's not viable.
I was told to sit down and be quiet.
I'm gonna get, Pam's chance.
Is the $8,000 for the health officer part of the 23,000 increase that we're talking?
Yes, it is, and that budget was moved out of other places to that department. It's not really part of enforcement, but it makes it easier to track. So.
So one of the things, and Mark would be aware of, is that when you're a health officer, you deal with some amount of privacy issues, right? And we have to have something on the server so that I'm voted off the select board, it's gonna go to the next person or whoever, right? We gotta have a database, so we're gonna have a laptop housed in the town office that I can go on record for if I have a complaint. And I go take photos and I start documentation towards the process to resolve an issue, right? And then it gets resolved. If we see problem, say landlords, you know, we can have a conversation. But we gotta, right now, there's no record of it. So we just want to house it. So there is an increase in the health officer budget. Okay, generally speaking, folks. I trust that. I trust our department heads. And we've looked into how much our governor's safety stuff counts as time towards total time of an officer's, you know, billable hours or whatever. It's a separate accounting system. So we get compensated for the vehicle, we get compensated for the person. Can't answer Phoebe's question about liability, that would be Chiefs. But do I trust Demi with highway? Yes. Do I trust Chief? I do. If she comes to us and says, I need this training. We don't, I am not, if I trust our police chief, I will back them up. And until they prove otherwise, that's how I'm gonna keep going.
I understand, Mark, sometimes you've had an axe to grind. I get it.
object.
Oh, well, that's okay for you. That's quite all right for you to object, but it's my time to talk.
But it's also putting that on the record that I have an axe to grind, that's why I'm bringing.
Well, it seems to right now, the accounting is done. I trust our department head. I'm making a statement. If it's the highway department head, if it's the rescue department head, if it's Chief Brock, I do have a high degree of trust of our team.
So did I have an axe to grind when I brought up issues about, the new position that we're talking $127,000?
No,
No, but this one I do?
yes,
So Tim, could you please clarify?
no.
No, you won't?
I'm gonna let you talk again. I'm gonna give Ian a chance.
Ian McKenzie, but I might have different parts, question almost forward. And obviously everybody knows me, I'm the villain with the ATV stuff. One of the things that did come out with the ATV stuff, every single road in our town, everyone complains about the speed. It doesn't matter if it's just past Sewell Brook Road, people hitting 60, it doesn't matter if it's Oxbow, people hitting 50 in places that they shouldn't. The Oxbow is posted at 35 miles an hour. There's no place up there that's safe to barely hit 35 miles an hour. Doesn't matter if you want to, and I've been told by a lot of different professionals that all of the stuff we discussed in our ATV meetings were anecdotal, or we just were pulling stuff out of our rears. We can sit down, we can do calculations on site distance, braking, curvature, super elevations of the road, all that stuff. I'd love to do that. One of the things I'd recommended to the select board before was, let's reduce the speed limits on some of our rural roads. A lot of them are 35 right now. I see no reason why Oxbow shouldn't be 30 or 25. Make Royalton Hill 25. There's really only one stretch that you can go over 35 safely, and even then, site distances are questionable. Same thing, Davis Road, any road should be lower. And I guess my leading into that is if we could reduce, our speed limits, would it make it better for you to do more traffic work on these roads? Would it give you more heat to sit there, where you can nail someone for doing 30 or 40 over, and then bring more of a purpose to be on our roads? I guess so. I have a couple different ideas and thoughts, and try to structure that well.
Good idea. I think there's something in the legislature right now to make the speed limit on all 35, whatever, 35.
We're gonna get comment from Loretta, because she had said before that she's only allowed to do certain things with speed limits, or why don't we reduce them?
No, when I said on Dart's highway safety, we're not allowed to do regular calls for service. It's highway enforcement home. Sorry, that was confusing.
Speed, anybody? Fun, Mark,
Yes, as someone who's running for office, not only do I find Tim's slight remark offensive, but totally uncalled for, and I do ask publicly for an apology. Because the points that I bring up are points that I'm running my campaign on, it's points that have been brought to me, my attention by the public, and asked me to ask these in public forum. Because of my knowledge and my background in these fields, I am coming from a much more educated position than Tim is. So Tim, take the personal issues off the table, and I appreciate the apology in public.
Mark, you had a hard time. And you did a good job, and then for some reason, you had a hard, no, I'm gonna explain. I have a hard time. You've come to us with issues. At one time, you're full on support of the chief, other times, not so much. For you to question, I apologize for you if I said that anything offensive about or disrespectful about you with asking questions about the governor's highway safety. It doesn't make up huge amounts of our officers' time. And as Gidget said, we have now 4 officers. We just got the 4, okay? And and with a lot of policing around us in disarray, ours is pretty tight, and I'm pretty happy about it. I trust our police chief. If I offended you, I apologize, but I stand by what I say. We never have said we offer 24/7 police coverage, but if I am in constant communication with our police chief to say, hey, we have people parked on the green at night, that gets taken care of. It's a constant effort, okay? It's never gonna be pretty. But compared to what other towns are going through around here, I think we're super fortunate to have who we have.
This is. Yeah,
You got your apology.
I did, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so I'd like to follow up, but this isn't about, or unless that hand to my face right there would shut me up.
No.
I'm not really clear what that was.
All right, we have about a lot to get through this meeting, so please just say what you want to say.
I'm trying. And, well,
Yeah, we're getting a lot of personal attacks, and I'm just trying to get everybody through this meeting.
no personal, these are all professional issues. It's a management issue. And if something's mismanaged, why, the way we're able to question Chris and everyone else up there, we can ask them specific questions because they are department heads. Why can we not question other department heads in the same manner so that we can be a well-informed, maybe a little more educated as to why it's happening? But all of a sudden, when you ask a certain manager something, it's personal or are certain departments above question. And they never once told us that we were being rude when we asked questions. And there were some pretty hard questions, and they all stood for them and they answered them professionally. That's all I'm doing. And I can give very specific professional questions without being told that all of a sudden you're the rabble rouser because you're questioning a department.
I'm just trying to keep it on task, and what we're talking about right now is the budget, so please, that's all I'm trying to do is keep it on task.
Is it Pretown meeting?
It's Pretown meeting.
Then when do we get to the part where we can have a meeting?
When you stop talking,
Well,
That's what this is about.
well, no, because you're doing all the talking right here.
Thank you.
Moderator, this is, Madam Moderator, I had my hand up because I wish to move on.
Is there, I would like to know if there's any more discussion about the budget. Whether that's through the police department, anything as long as it's budget related, that's what we're talking about right now.
I have a question. See, now you've got Australian ballot. Okay. So we go down there to the meeting and we can't have any discussion, say, we don't want to put this amount of money into this department. We have no recourse. What happens if you really don't want it? Can we vote? If we vote it down, you have another town meeting, what happens? But actually vote this thing down. My question, I don't know the answer.
Have the answer. Carmen, you're supposed to know, I'm the presiding officer of the Australian Valley. Curious about. And worked for 11 years now. It's an interesting job. Really happy. I'm not thinking that it is tonight. But to answer Ted's question, and I tell people this regularly, I do try, I'm pretty highly opinionated, but my job isn't to have an opinion that day. And everyone who's working for us that day, it's not their job to have an opinion. It's our job to just keep you safe, to have the constable there, to have the justices of the peace there, have everybody as evenly filled as possible. So people can just go in and vote their voice, and everyone has an opportunity to vote. That being said, if that question comes up all the time, it comes up in my office, when people come in to vote, like, oh, look at this, they sit down and like, oh my gosh. You're getting an income voucher? And they're like, well, they're like break right there, and they'll turn around and say, and suddenly, and this is how we do that. I tell people, and it's a state statute, you don't ever have to vote ever. And I would always recommend a person not to vote on an issue that they don't understand. That being said, that's why it's so important right now. But no one encourages people to vote on something that they don't understand. And most of us get pretty riled up when people don't take the time to come to meetings. But educate themselves. But I think his question was, what happens if it gets voted down? If the budget gets voted down? what
What's the
happened.
next step?
Oh, what's the next step, or, so if you're asking, or, okay, all right. So if the budget, because the budget's not a line item, the budget's the whole budget, what would happen is.
Actually,
They'd have to have another meeting. That's correct. And it would have to.
Now, would that be up to you now?
Oh, well, it would have to be warned again, and. I mean, I think the select board could take it on, maybe the advice of the townspeople that maybe they don't want it by Australian ballot, maybe they want a town meeting. Right, and or they could, you know, as long as I think as long as the governor's. Protocol or whatever is still in place, it could be done by Australian ballot as it is this time. However, I think it's up to the select board how they would want it. After the next meeting, but they would have to hold another meeting, because at some point. Sit down with the budget.
See, that's the advantage of having a regular town meeting. Right. Say, we don't want this, or no, let's increase. I've seen the time you could increase the budget, which you want, no, they need money, but you have no recourse now.
I posted the timeline just today, the March timeline for all those statutes that allow, they give us the opportunities and tell us exactly when. We can choose and by what percentage we have to have a vote on. So everything got posted today, it's under first analysis. Where is that, Jonathan? I put it
On the
through
town
Town
page?
Forum.
Oh,
Well, it's a day early, actually, it doesn't. I usually do it once a month, but you'll find it on the webpage tomorrow on the first. Because today, the 28th, is so important, because of all, for the clerk office, because there are a lot of, new laws in play, I had to make sure I covered today, so that was all covered. Just quietly doing my own thing in my own office, I don't like it, so I think we put up work together.
by the way, Carmen's running for office, and I think we should vote for it.
Anybody? I'll come back to you in a second.
If they did vote the budget down. And then you go back to regular town meeting. Then could you have the line item veto?
It sounds so, yes. I would say if we voted the budget down, we'd have to warn a special meeting, and it would be an open traditional town meeting. And someone like Jim could increase the food bank again, like he did one other year, $10,000. Right. Those are things you can do at a town meeting, it's a traditional meeting.
This question came up in not too long ago past, and it was said that if it was floor vote in the past, when it was voted down, it has to be floor vote again. If it was an Australian ballot and it was voted down, it has to be Australian ballot if it's voted again.
Yes.
So
You may be correct, and I'd have to research that, but, that she may be right, and. We need to check with the COVID rules, because this was called under COVID situation. And probably, maybe Victoria has,
I don't know on it.
but no, and I'm in the same boat, we would check, but we're allowed a certain amount of time to do that. So there would have to be another meeting of what form it takes for that. And we've done that before, schools do it all the time. School budgets get voted. Okay, anything else on the budget?
Yeah, I was just curious, Jim Hudson, what is the $203,000 raised by non-tax revenues? What are the non-tax revenues?
Either in the,
End of Article 7.
there's been 200,000 raised by non-tax
Well,
revenue.
some came from the general fund, but then there was another 203.
Yeah, so Jim, on
Thank
page
you.
17, all of those non-tax revenues, it's everything on general fund revenue, that's not the amount that we're raising by tax.
Thank you.
So it's your clerk fees, your homestead payments, all that extra stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else in this article, the budget? Okay, then we can move on to the highway fund expenditures. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the highway fund expenditures? Let's get better dirt, it's my lord.
We're gonna find out more. Don't worry.
Bottom of my driveway, has ever been like that, bottom.
Is there any money in there for paving?
Just identify yourself.
Oh,
Who are you?
Bob Gray. Is there any money in the budget for paving?
Yes, there is. And thanks for asking. I got a call from Bill Russo. You probably served with Bill. On North Road. The state is how I love the state. The state actually called and us and said, you haven't applied for paving, thank you, paving grant. And we would like to this year. And Demi has gone out and identified and prioritized the roads. We're gonna do a right around with Chris Bump, the state engineer, to just to verify, but it looks like the North Road. Barnard has done it in the last, I think it was 4 years. Bethel has done it. We have about a 2.4 mile section that we're gonna do. Along with that goes about 6, we're gonna say 8 culverts that we have in stock that for a period of time, they were hard to get, you know, put in ordinance like everything else took about 8 months to get in. But yes, to answer your question, and we're also looking at North Windsor, Pleasant Street, South Street, and part of the Oxbow.
Is that this year's budget?
We can't do it all.
Are you talking about 3 or 4 years down the road? Or what?
No, I don't think it'll be 3 or 4, but we have grants available. We need to expand our bandwidth. I'm sorry to say.
The North Road. The North Road. The speed down that highway is probably 20 miles an hour faster than it should be. And there are potholes all over. Somebody's gonna get hurt really seriously.
That's number one.
That's the first priority.
Yeah.
Pay.
So, when we find out whether or not we get the maximum out of the grant, we do have paving money in our own budget to supplement it, but that's number one. And as far as changing the speed limit,
No, you don't.
but we should look into that.
I don't care what you do with the speed limit. I just want the road fixed.
Yeah.
Potholes all over it. Somebody's gonna get on, hit one of those, take the front end right out of it.
The one road, North Windsor, we might be hesitant to because there's a couple catch basins in there that need to be elevated that haven't been in a while. And we're also gonna be tying into a new sidewalk project, so we want to see how they're gonna interface. But the rest of it could be done. That's been high on the radar. And I've been driving South Pleasant Street every day. It's pretty rough.
So if they do decide to do North Roads, which I agree with Bob, that would need to be done. Would they go from the town line to town line?
Yes. We're gonna stop in front of your drive, like 15. Slow people down.
Just for calling with that, hopefully. We don't just band-aid. Everyone looks at these paving budgets and it's like, oh, we can pave X number of feet and overlay. What we really need to do with our roads, I think it's one of the conversations we had last year and one, whatever meeting it was. We need to look at our roads section by section. We need to start, there's a lot of stuff that, the reason why we're losing it, there's no bottom of our roads. The drainage is terrible, the material from top to bottom. Some of these roads, I know the potholes are there, we need to figure out just a Band-Aid. Fill the potholes and then work through these roads section by section for whatever, budget we can get annually, please.
I think you should be on a paving committee, like, we should be forming committees to do this because we need to bring talent together, and I know you're about as stretched thin as can be.
Anybody else on highway?
I can just say that we just filled out our crew for the first time starting yesterday. And I know that road sections and storms and such have taken quite a bit longer than they used to. Hopefully, Demi thinks we can shorten that up by quite a bit. And I'm looking forward to hopefully keeping a seasoned crew. Our longest tenured
person other than Demi is about a year and a half tops, and that's not a lot of experience.
I'd like to commend them that they got the grader fixed. That was a really big improvement last spring,
Got my phone bill
last
now.
summer.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the final article which is shall the voters disapprove the ordinance regulating altering vehicles that was adopted on December 27th, 2022. And again, I'm gonna remind, I think there's gonna be a lot of initial conversation. I'd like to keep everybody's first comments at least to 3 minutes. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to come back. We want to give everybody an opportunity to address the article if they'd like to. So does the select board have anything to open with, or you want to go ahead and open it up? Okay, all right, the floor is open. Like,
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to read because I will not remember everything.
can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Hoyt Bingham, for those of you who don't know me. I've lived in Royalton for 35 years so far, raised 2 children who were educated in our local school system. And I've been involved in a lot of the various school and town committees over the years. I call Royalton my home and care about the health and well-being of you and our community. We're here to discuss the ATV ordinance and our community. In case I'm too long-winded, we'll begin by asking you to vote yes on Article 9 to keep ATVs off our town highway roads until the club establishes their private trail network. Now I'll explain why. Section 2, the purpose in the ordinance. The purpose of the ordinance is to promote and protect the public health, safety, welfare of the town and to preserve residents' rights to quiet enjoyment of homes and properties. By regulating the time, manner, and location of operation of ATVs within the town. We each have our own way of enjoying recreation. I'm not here to dispute that. ATV riders have their right to ride. Non-motorized sport people have their right to their type of recreation as well. Last year, Royalton voters were charged by the select board to vote on an ATV article stating shall the town establish an ordinance according to 43 VSA chapter 2506 B1A to allow all terrain vehicles to operate on limited sections of town highways for the purpose of connecting recreational trail system with neighboring towns. We know an ordinance was established by the ATV committee and adopted on 12/27/22 by the select board. The limited section of town highways. This section of last year's vote was dismissed by most of the ATV committee and the select board. These limited select sections were intended to cross roads to get from one private trail to the next in well-cited areas. Instead, approximately 18 miles of town highway was suggested. And I don't know if it was the club or the committee or whomever, and willingly accepted by 80% of the select board. The last part of the article that we voted on last year stated connecting recreational trail systems with neighboring towns. And neighboring towns, to my knowledge, do not have recreational trails available to connect to. The listed town roads in the ordinance are the ATV recreation trails. They will be open to any UTVs from anywhere in the area, the state or the country. Last year's article was not followed well. My question is, do you feel these same groups will follow the purpose of this ordinance through regulating the time, manner, and location of operation to promote and protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the town, and preserve residents' rights to quiet enjoyment of homes and properties? So if you don't want ATVs on our road, on a road, please vote yes on Article 9 to keep ATVs off the roads until the club establishes their private trail.
Yes.
I'm Stuart Lavasher, speaking as a Royalton citizen on safety. The only time an ATV should be on the road is to cross it. That's just the source of this statement is the UVM Medical Center Emergency Department. There are many reasons to oppose Royalton's ATV ordinance, but safety should be paramount. Narrow roads, poor lines of sight, steep cliffs, and no shoulders spell life-threatening danger. ATV manufacturers have warnings that these vehicles are not intended to be driven on roads. The ATV committee and our select board pushed for opening entire stretches of roads instead of having private trails with road crossings. The ATV's club has stated that their plan is to open more roads once the public is acclimated to this change. And this is an accident involving a car versus ATV will surely injure the exposed ATV rider. Is your auto insurance ready? We already checked for that. I want to add that these ATV clubs are the ones pushing for the change. Yes, it is a change. Along with the change will come more riders. For safety's sake, we're asking to keep ATVs off the roads. These more riders will be unfamiliar with our roads and won't know what's around the next one.
I'm Gene Bay, and I'm also going to be reading. The Royalton ATV Club, Cascade Heroes, are proposing usage of Royalton Town roads for ATV riding from the 15th of May to September 30th, during the hours of 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. For wheelers is a group of 15 to 25 members that want to ride the roads from the Oxbow, Pleasant Street, Auto Merrill Road, Vancouver Road, Johnsonville Road, Davis Road, Roosevelt Road, Royalton Turnpike, Stewart Road, Lee Hill, and possibly other roads in town. The Wheelers are a local club that belongs to VASA, a statewide organization of other ATV clubs. These clubs would like to have a connecting trail throughout the state. All clubs that belong to VASA can have members of other clubs to ride on the trails. This means that any other VASA member or club can come to ours and use our roads as well. Additionally, all VASA clubs are open to any other nationwide club. So Royalton Town roads could be open to local riders, state riders, and national riders. This brings the number of ATVs that can be riding our roads from 15 to 25 to an untold number. Also, riders who don't belong to clubs will be allowed to ride on our roads. Is this really what we want for our town? To be an ATV mecca for the whole state and region? Will these out-of-state riders and riders from out of our town have the same respect for our town as we do? Will they have the same respect for our laws that we have? Will they have the same respect for our roads that we have? Will they have the same respect for our speed limits that we have? For these reasons, I oppose opening our roads to ATV riding and ask you to vote yes to keeping ATVs off roads and roads.
Jim Hudson. I'm not an ATV rider, but I'm in favor of the ordinance that we passed to allow people to use trails, use our roads to get here and there, because it happens already. People do ride the roads. We see it all the time, and this is a way to sort of think ahead. You talked about other people coming. That might happen. I've been to towns where, snowmobiles, in the Northeast Kingdom, snowmobiles are all over the place. It's a huge boon to those towns. It's an enormous benefit. And I don't think you're gonna see us as a mecca of ATV riders, because we don't actually have that many trails at this point. And, if we have private trails and people generously open their land to it, it might become more of a thing. It's a very small thing right now, I think. And, you're just working towards something in the future that might be beneficial, this is gonna get revisited every year. It can get shut down if it turns out to be a huge boondoggle. It just, December 27th actually became a thing. I personally think we should give it a try.
I only have one thing to say. And that is this. A majority of the town voted on a big change to lifestyle to a minority of people. People that don't have any skin in the game. Said, oh yeah, they can have ATVs on those roads, right? So all of those ATVs are now congregated, they're all compacted onto our few roads. So my point is this, you are not willing to have ATVs on your road every day in the summer. Going speeding past even 25, maybe speeding past animals, but I'm saying this. Either everybody gets it, right? So you all get to have ATVs going past your house or nobody. Right? So if you can't say, yes, I'm willing to have them go past my house, till 8 o'clock at night. Then you need to vote yes on this. If you're willing to have them past your house, then we need to talk about the whole town, not just a few people on the roads who are gonna have their lives disrupted. Let everybody carry the load. If we're gonna allow this, everybody should carry the load, not just a few of us. And that's all.
I agree with Jim. I don't ride an ATV myself. But I'm gonna love ride on my land. The reason being is, what I think they deserve a chance. And it is a yearly thing, it can be taken echo if they don't respect everything that's involved. The other fact is that I have a 95-year-old father-in-law that owns the land I have now. And he was going to get with that. And that tells me something about the real life. I don't like non-revised. I think they deserve a chance. Thank you.
Council President, thank you for giving me a few minutes. I've been involved in this for, since the vote last year, been to a lot of select board meetings, much to the disappointment of some of the select board. I've heard this debate be framed as if it were about people versus people in Boylston, that this is, that there are certain people in the town that have an agenda against a couple of people, well-meaning people who are, even Ian stood up and said, he's the, what's the word that you used to himself? The villain, right? Ian and I close times, and they turn around and bought me from here to the crossroads, and that was very cool. But the thing is what I want to say is that I don't think this is about Ian versus other people in town who don't want the ATVs. This is about VASA. This is about the Vermont ATV Sportsman's Association, a private organization that has 7,000 members, 80% of which, that's 5,600 that are from out of state. They're $1 million a year revenue. They somehow convinced the Department of Natural Resources to give our taxpayer money to them so that they can establish a trail network that goes all across Vermont, up and down, and connect town to town. And they see us as being a very, very important part of that network. Because if they can get Boylston to fall, then maybe they can get that little fall, maybe they can go back to Barnard, maybe they can get Tunbridge. We are very important to them, and that's one of the reasons why there's been such a push. But anybody, and I hope that you and your father don't regret it, because anybody who allows the VASA map to include their own private property is no longer just opening their property up to the Stagnant Valley Healers or the, you know, any other group that's from a local town. They're opening up their land to any of the 7,000 members who have bought a trail access detail from Vassar $70 or $115 a pop, and they can come on your property and they'll be able to come on our roads, the, what is it, 18 point something miles of Royalton roads. It is not about, this is not a local situation. This is a grift. And I feel that we've allowed ourselves to be told by members of the select board, this is a very emotional situation. And Tim, I'm sorry, but even at our last select board meeting, hearing that you didn't want to hear this again, you didn't want to hear it. Well, you're hearing it, and I'm really glad that so many people showed up to tell you that we're very unhappy about the way things have unfolded or not worked this year. But this has been a disaster since the beginning. And I'll tell you what, this thing gets repealed or recalled, and next time it comes up again in another couple of years, the Bassett doesn't give up. And next time they want to open up your road, I will work just as hard to keep the ATVs on your road as I'm doing to try to help you. Thank you.
Not everyone's gonna get why we're asking these portions of town highways for ATV trails. I understand that. There's people from both sides of lifelong, multi-generational residents and recently homed here. that are also on both sides, for ATVs and against ATVs. There are folks that have moved here, and they moved here because most of our Vermont communities are welcome. We don't want to change that, and I don't really see how ATVs are gonna change that, but we've heard many reasons why they will. I like to think of us as we're just as much accepting of all walks of life as anyone else. We like to think that, you know, our people would risk our lives for the safety of others. Most may not remember, but that's exactly what a lot of ATVers did after Irene, to make sure our neighbors had what they needed. Most may not know that last year, while mud season hit its all-time high in the area, one of our members, on the fire department, brought his side-by-side to work with him every day for 3 weeks, just in case there was an emergency call that emergency services couldn't get to, and they could have that ATV ready to go. My point, not everyone grew up here or has been around here long enough to know everything that matters to me or others in our club. Speaking for myself, I grew up in this town. I grew up being brought by my parents and their friends in Jeeps, Scouts, or Broncos on rides over class 4 roads to seasonal camps, friends' houses, put out fish in remote ponds, streams when we had a fish and game club. We then used those 4x4 rigs to go fish, hunt, trap, forage for berries, mushrooms, fiddleheads, or take family around back roads and class 4s. I was shown how to have a deep appreciation for our town's natural communities and our heritage, with visits to old cellar holes, beaver ponds, remote cemeteries, or Alder's Cave. To me, this was normal and part of growing up here in this town. I know a lot of other folks share similar memories of backward excursions with their family and friends. As time has gone on, we weren't welcome to certain class 4 roads with Jeeps we used to ride regularly. Or houses were built right in the middle of what was a class 4 road when it hadn't seen traffic for a year or two. Or when the properties on those class 4 roads exchanged to new folks from out of town, one of the first things they wanted was to petition or request that class 4 road be discontinued. Within my lifetime, most of us have got out of Jeeps as we just couldn't go the places we used to. However, in the last 10 years or so, with new side-by-sides, we found those ATVs and UTVs were generally more accepted in other towns that gave us a chance to ride to some of those places that we used to with Jeeps. 24%, in fact, in our state, 58 other towns. Bassett doesn't care about our town. I don't know that we've had almost actually little help from Bassett, but we did the Bassett thing because everybody said we needed the liability insurance that went with it and all the other things that did it. So we did have a lot of discussions about just having a private club. But, you know, going the Bassett route because the insurance seemed to be so much of a big deal, and the money that we could get available from Bassett to actually maintain class 4 roads that the town has no budget for. I'm sure most have read what's going on in Tunbridge with what was a class 4 and has now been reduced to a legal trail. And now there's a legal battle that's going on over that legal trail that will be used in courts going forward to set a precedent of what all other class fours that are gonna be turned into legal trails will be. Where new owners don't want to accept what has always been. Class fours may not mean much to people not from around here, but to people that grew up around here, they know where Almero's old foundation homestead was. They know that Almero Road was the main road before the interstate or the Oxbow. So most of us ATV riders, we see things in the woods that are part of a not so long ago forgotten world. When we come up on wildlife, we stop and let them pass and easily go, and then we go gently back along our way. Even two of the largest wildlife refuges in our state, Silvio County and Wetmont, have hundreds of miles of gravel roads in them for people to get out into the refuges and enjoy nature. Can't call us some second-class appreciators of nature when I'm pretty sure everyone could possibly get in their car to go home tonight and hit a deer on their way home. Like, I've had enough of the wildlife, we disrupt the wildlife discussion. And as for damage to roads, when speeds are going at 20 miles an hour, I would highly doubt that we're gonna see a lot of damage, and we have vowed to door freight weekly, if needed, any spots where the gravel gets agitated. And then we would make the grant request, through VASA to help with drainage and erosion on our class fours. Our machines are gonna go slower, the maximum in town is actually 20 miles an hour. The map in the town report says limited, speed limits in other places. As far as carbon footprints, just as much as the country is turning to electric vehicles, so are ATVs. We literally had a member with a 100% all-electric Ranger on the green and in the parade in Old Home Days, but yet we had very few come over to check it out.
And you're approaching 5 minutes, so you wrap it up, you can come back. Gotta let other people talk.
Our goal is to help riders be responsible by giving them a place to ride legally. Otherwise, anytime anyone rides on roads that we pay state registration fees for, and granted, even though while it's still fuel, it's a highway tax we pay for, and it's insured the same as any other, EV. We just want to give people a place to ride in allowed areas, give us a chance to show what we can build. And how our riders can, advocate for extra safety trainings and just operate, responsibly, give them a chance. Thanks.
I'm Kate Caldwell, and two things. One is liability for the town. You say VASA has a liability. Do we really know how much coverage that would give us, and if anything happened in the town, and someone who not from around here wants to sue, who's gonna pay for that? Who's reporting it? So that's one of my concerns. And I need to bring up the other, the police. These people that are coming from someplace else, not from the community, are supposed to be riding registered vehicles, they're supposed to be licensed, they're supposed to be wearing a trailer. They're not supposed to be driving under the influence. All of these things need policing to ensure that it's done correctly. And some people say that we have police coming out of our ears, but do we really have the bandwidth to be covering all these roads that aren't right there on Newport to get access by the police? We know that the local purposes are gonna have police their own people, and that's fine. Without everyone else who's going on this. Those are my.
I'm gonna let Ian, Joe, do you have something else because I think Ian wanted to answer that, but if you have something else to say, I'll give you the opportunity. So are you okay with holding on? Or do you want to speak?
I don't want to hold up another 5 more minutes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Real quick on the insurance, so we have the same liability insurance your car does. Same thing, if you ran into a covered bridge and burnt it down, the liability coverage would pick up some. The VASA is traditionally like a public liability, so yes, if a covered bridge burned down, this happened with a snowmobile, actually, like a snowmobile caught on fire. Well, I don't know that you're covered right now when you leave. It's the same.
But that's the same theory. So you're expecting that we are a second class citizen, that we're not gonna have the same insurance. So I'm trying to answer your questions. And then question number two. Policing.
Well, no, because we're not gonna go back and forth on this.
Policing is at any
Just
time.
answer the question and then you can respond.
Policing, we don't even need to use the town. Obviously, there were certain things that happened, they're involved the town. But there is a budget solely for us to use Windsor County Sheriff's for additional patrols at any time we request it.
All right, so my point is, not everyone who's going to be riding and going through ATVs is going to be a passenger. They're going to be coming from the state. So we don't know that they're covered by that nice insurance policy that for that one. And the second is, oh, well, we need to call the Windsor police guys because somebody just tore off and I don't know where they're talking. I mean, that's not sufficient monitoring. The residents that couldn't happen on public. If someone wants to be on the take off at the top of the hill, go check out a cell phone, that's fine. But when you're on public roads, big cars, and the people on these are exposed, and they're not even in the car, they're wearing their helmets. I mean, there's just a whole lot more inherent risks. That's what I'm saying.
All right, Joe.
Actually, I was asking like that, so. Oh, here you are, here. Sorry.
What, I'm confused. Are you speaking or somebody else speaking?
If he wants to speak, I'll let him.
Okay. And please identify yourself.
My name is Peter Anderson, I live in South Korea. I've served on the local planning commission for 25 years, and the River Region for several years. I serve now in the Royal Planning Commission, but I'm speaking as an individual. I feel incredibly well in the part of Vermont over the years. They were focused here on the road to the ordinance, in my view, ATV access is actually a land use issue. Question is, how will we respect and enjoy our wonderful natural environment? How will we treat the land? As development in our town spreads, forest fragmentation, disrupting animal habitat. Important to know where the animals live and travel in order to minimize human impact and help wildlife thrive. Now, scientists at the UVM and the Fish and Wildlife Department developed habitat maps and software called biofinding. They found that large animals such as bear and moose go back and forth between the northern White Mountain and the Green Mountain. And believe it or not, the main wildlife corridor east of the Green Mountain, as you can see here, is right straight through Royalton. Okay? This is got to be it. And that's what we're making. You remember mink the bear from Hanover, we had nuisance, they structure took up the Canadian border. But a year and a half later, and 1,200 miles later, he was back in Queechee, Lebanon, Hanover area. So anyway, that's like that. This map shows the wildlife corridor with remaining large forest blocks in green with crucial connectivity blocks together. Corridor is quite wide at the Berkshire and then narrows down to the Sheer before coming through Royalton, heading to the Barnes to the Green Mountain. And this is right in Royalton where we follow that. The most ecologically sensitive section of the entire trail. And this is a close-up view of just Royalton. This is exactly where the club wants to have their trails to go. It gets from the headquarters here, the trailhead ends, and then down to the bars, over across here, the whole section of town out, so we'll go from there. We're so lucky to live in this beautiful part of the world. Why would we want to risk damaging it for the sake of one individual who's starting a business who wants access to our community's roads for his private club? Especially concerned that the select board decided to enact this ATV ordinance, which is not what the original article proposed. 4 of the 5 members changed from protecting and conserving our town's land and natural resources, being willing to sell us out, allowing a private club to exploit our town's peace and quiet, our forests, and our roads. That shouldn't happen. From an ecological perspective, ATVs would seriously upset the ecology, the balance of nature in our town. Allowing ATVs access to our wildlife corridor would be introducing an invasive species to our community. If allowed to use our roads to get access to more and more land, ATVs from our town and beyond will have their dark,
stars snaking everywhere through our fields and forests, please vote yes on Article 9 to disapprove the ATV ordinance. Thank you.
No, someone else is Mike Hogan. Okay, Mike Hogan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Let me just flip my camera on here.
No one can see you, Mike.
Anyway, thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't be there tonight, but I do want to make a couple of points. In some respects, this is a sleight of hand because the voters who voted for this original idea were voting under the impression that this was to be part of some elaborate scenario to connect up with the towns. But the ultimate resulting ordinance has nothing to do with connecting up with the towns. Not that, in my view, it was a good idea, but nevertheless, the voters who voted for that voted for one particular reason. And now this ordinance, as is laid out, has nothing to do with the original purpose. And it's really has its limitations, I think legally, quite frankly. Secondly, government tries to avoid picking winners and losers. And this ordinance actually affirmatively goes out and picks winners and losers. The winners are obviously the ATV folks and those lucky residents who live on roads that have not been arbitrarily selected. And the losers, of course, are the residents who live along the roads that have been selected. As an example, well, let me say this. There also is a factor of public safety, and I'll use Gee Hill Road as an example. My understanding is a few years ago, there was already a fatality from an ATV accident on Gee Hill Road. And this past summer, there was another fatality of a youngster up in, I think, Morrisville. And this is going to happen again because those kind of roads don't have the sight distance, the width, and their general overall condition. Gee Hill Road is a road that's constantly under repair. And I can't imagine that the use of ATVs on roads like that and elsewhere that have been designated are going to be anything but a problem for the town road department to keep up with it. The ordinance itself talks about protecting I think the peace and quiet or of the residents. No one has pointed out how this ordinance protects anybody. So I have to say, I would strongly urge that the voters of Royalton take this under consideration and vote to overturn this ordinance. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'd ask, the people against the ATV ordinance, if they're against snowmobiles as well. They're already here, they're legal, they're just as loud, if not louder. They certainly disturb wildlife a lot more, they go right through your bedding areas. I'm gonna be in that. I have more questions. On the enforcement side, we do have a police department, we also have constables that would be happy to assist. My thought and suggestion to that would be putting that budget towards a side-by-side for enforcement, that would use by our police department, by our fire and safety. Mud season is here, I'm surprised we don't have one already. I would be happy to put whatever stipend or budget to the constable towards that vehicle. For the enforcement side, if not for the enforcement side, just for the fire department and the fire staff. And the insurance. we would require insurance according to the ordinance. I didn't see it in here. Is that not true? You know,
By citing the statute requires insurance.
so it's statewide, so it's already required if there's. Oh,
So, I've heard the, Brad clear. The comparison to the snowmobile thing. Snowmobile system is sort of like what we were led to believe this was gonna be. Which is, it's private land, private trails with crossings. And yes, there are a few kind of short, areas where they do travel on the road for a little bit. One of which isn't far from us, going uphill the hill, and it's super sketchy. I mean, people come flying out there all the time, I did drive up there. Anyway, so that comparison, to me, they're not the same at all. I live on an area that, would be included in this, ordinance. It was about a year ago, and all of a sudden I picked up a computer in the morning and I saw, wait a second, that looks like where I live. And it was this proposal from last year that, yeah, it was gonna have this ATV trail come right up past our place. It was kind of gonna be the gateway to Barnard. Our road is, there are 8 houses on it, it's a dead end road, and it is nothing but one blind curve after another. One of the select board members who's not here, he drove up it, and he came back and he said, it's treacherous. Ian, during one of our meetings, he said, yeah, that road's terrifying. Because of that, I was concerned, and so I joined the ATV committee. And I tried to go into that with an open mind, hoping that there would be, you know, some intelligent debate and spirit of compromise. Unfortunately, that isn't really the way it shook out. The committee was comprised of a majority of ATV supporters, many of which were club members, their immediate family, close friends, neighbors. So it didn't take long to realize that, you know, if one side already from the get-go has a majority, it's not true. Compromise isn't really gonna work out. So in the end, there was lots of debate, but it was kind of just a big waste of time because we could have just taken the model ordinance from the VTCC, changed, you know, filled in some blanks, and that's what we gave to the select board. We didn't really have the time, or again, we weren't going to come into agreement on the roads. We expected that the select board would actually do some due diligence, look into these roads and routes, at least eliminate the ones that were treacherous. I mean, that to me is just common sense. I think Tim at one point, he really wanted to get a system in place, some guidelines for like what roads could be acceptable, what shouldn't be. Because I think, as you said, Tim, you know, there will be another select board someday. So we want to leave them a blueprint, something that works. I guess that never happened because in the end, you heard lots of concerns about individual roads. Those concerns weren't really addressed, and you gave the ATV club everything that they asked for, and then told people if they had a problem with it, repeal. So that's why we're here. There was no sense of compromise, nothing like that. And in the end, I think that's a disservice to not only the people that live on the road, but also the ATV club, because it's an all or nothing approach. Instead of trying to find some middle ground and something that would work for everybody. That's all, yeah.
Yeah, I will. Um, I have very little left to say after all the other things that other people have said, except that I'd like to speak for people that aren't here tonight whom I spoke with since this was adopted, on December 27th. And what I heard from people saying was concern about the people who didn't want ATVs on the road had reasons that were beyond just the road, like that. Well, I am tired of ATVs and other motorized traffic in my private woods without permission. And this is the kind of thing that drives some people to be against this. And I spoke with somebody about that who said, well, I haven't heard about this. If they have this problem, they should be reporting. And then it's illegal to drive ATVs on the road, as it has been pointed out here tonight, right now, because we don't have an ordinance. And if it's not voted down next week, it still won't be legal until what, May 15th was the date? And, but there's ATVs all over the road now. And one of the things that, about riding on private road is they don't even, people don't know that the power lines are private property. The trail that people are riding on snowmobiles on power lines is private. A private easement for the power line, which has been given private permission for snowmobiles to drive on. So a lot of people are worried about the effect broader than even the town roads. And I am one that does not think that that is right for the town roads. And it should, as Brad said, I was under the impression we were was gonna be like the snowmobile trail. That it would need to cross town roads here or there or whatever, but not make the town roads our trails. Thank you.
I feel like quite a hypocrite really, but I've been counting up the engines, the gasoline engines that we have on our farm, and we got over 30. 2 of them are ATVs. We enjoy them and use them on the woods and but my real now that I've enjoyed all and through my life all the motorized transportation, I'm thinking, you know, the consumption of gasoline and the consumption of pollution of all the various things have an effect on the environment. And we really were, especially in America, we're really greedy on our consumption. And you know, it's easy to say that when you've had your life of consuming. So I'm from that point of view, I question why we want to expand that and encourage more people to come to do that sort of thing. I'm not in favor of it, but I feel like I get it. Thank you.
Moderator Allison, can I stand at the front?
Yeah, absolutely.
Make a voice. I'm Kathy Hassey. I live with my husband next to the library in the village. I came to town in 1981 as a student. I very much enjoy living here. Not the least reason is all of you, all great people in our town. We gather on the green to celebrate together. We gather there to mourn and support each other in rough times. And we know that no matter how this vote goes, right, we're gonna be in community together after the vote. Sorry. 2 minutes, I swear. At my age, what is the most important for me is to live peacefully with others. It really is. And I want to thank each and every one of you for whatever you're doing to keep Royalton safe and fun and caring. I thank every single one of you. Thank you for updating us, Ian, that electric vehicles are coming, except for electric vehicles, ATVs do emit carbon and also contribute to erosion and loss of plant life, which plants literally keep us alive. So the main reason I oppose the ATV ordinance is climate disruption. We happen to be skiers, hikers, swimmers, campers. So we're seeing the impact with our own eyes. I imagine some of you are also. You also believe climate change is real and requires each of us to pitch in. Yes, my friend Dennis, each of us to pitch in. Then please vote yes on Article 9. If you're trying to drive less to limit your harmful emissions and believe recreational driving is something we should not be increasing, please vote yes on Article 9. If you treasure the brief summer months, right? Sitting in your yard, listening to quiet or the birds or children playing, so that adding traffic is unwelcome. Please vote yes on Article 9. If you believe we ought to be doing all we can to assure a healthier, cleaner planet to leave our children, please vote yes on Article 9. Lastly, you see that pedestrians and bicyclists are already struggling for their share of our roads, and that ATV riders already have plenty of private lands on which to enjoy their hobby. Please vote yes on Article 9. Thank you.
Anything else, Wayne? Anybody else? Maybe that's already spoken.
Listen, I think we ought to give them a chance. We can shut it down if we don't like it. If it doesn't work, and at least we'll be able to say we gave them a chance, it doesn't work, and we'll know. And I think that's a good way to go. If it was mine to decide and it isn't, that's what I would do. I do have an electric ATV. I drive it on my property. You know, they're awesome. So, and someday, if the town agrees, I might like to be able to drive it on the road when I can no longer walk it. So, anyways, thank you. And can I add just one more thing? If I left an impression that I think the law school is bringing crime, that was a huge mistake. That is not the case. What I really wanted to say, the value in having, I think that some of your minds, I did that would be terrible. The value in having a community policing like what Gidget and Sandy and Mark and Loretta came up with is we can come together and talk through things before they're even a problem. And I really think the team who did that did really, really well with it. And I'd hate to go back to a more adversarial. I remember growing up as a little kid, and we used to love it when the policemen came down. We pestered them, we chased them down the road. It wasn't here, and I'm not so sure we do that anymore sometimes. And I'd love to feel like, you know, hey, we're protected, there they go. So if I made a mistake earlier in my comments about law school, nothing could be further from the truth. I think they're an extraordinary asset to the town, and we need to welcome them to the community. And the Marks and Lorettas, they were doing that. That's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Time and effort, hour, especially given that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, get that big one.
Thanks for inviting.
wrap it up. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I just want to say that I hope that we all do this again next year in person.
Yes.
I'm going to vote to override the ordinance that the select board passed. I don't feel that the guidelines that we set out in the original vote to connect to trails and to neighboring towns. I like how the snowmobiles do it, and I think the ordinance should be written in that same way. We don't need them on our road.
Adjourn.